Can you guys give me the thumbs up that you can hear me? They're doing thumbs up? Of the other people? Okay. So your computer and your Zoom.
Can you hear us? I just muted my computer. So we're set to go, Mr. Rebecca?
I believe so.
So as far as the gallery view, like you were mentioning earlier,
Yes,
so if we can everybody go to the gallery view,
yes, even the attendees.
even the
that are
attendees,
watching.
please, you can see all of the pictures versus just, a random phone on your screen. Please, go to gallery view. Thank you. Okay, we do apologize for the delay. We had an extended, closed session, but we have nothing to report out of closed session, and we'll start the regular meeting at 6:01. We'll go ahead and start with the pledge of allegiance, so you can please stand and join me in the pledge. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll get that other comment. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further
Are
discussion
we
on
not
that?
using Porto?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes, you are.
Hold on. I'm sorry, Tiffany, you made the first or the second?
Aaron made the motion, Tiffany seconded.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote, please.
Aaron, I don't have your vote or Julio's. Mr. Valadez? Okay, thank you. Do you have the scoreboard, Richard?
Yes, motion carries 4-1. Okay, we'll move on to the showcase, the Livingston High School Public Services CTE pathway. Mr. Jolly, welcome.
Hi, good evening, Board President Lopez, board members, Superintendent Peterson, Cabinet, and Mrs. Rohrbeck. My name is Chaz Jolly here, principal at Livingston High School, and it's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you the Livingston High School Public Service CTE pathway. So they have a lot of great work that they've been doing. The pathway has grown. Our teacher's name is Austin Harding, and I'm going to just share, we have 2 short videos that students made. And so it's my pleasure to share that right now. So I will go ahead and share my screen.
This is a video made by our peers that you can click on the link to watch. Our pathway is a 3-tier pathway. The first one is introduction to public service. Secondly is advanced public service. And finally, the capstone is criminal justice.
Sectors in public service. The first sector is public safety. Public safety has a few of these careers. There's more in depth, however, these are a few of them. The second sector is emergency response. These are a few careers that we learned. Firefighter, 1 firefighter, 2 woodland firefighter, and etc. The third sector is legal practice careers. Paralegal, court reporter, law librarian, legal researcher, and lawyer. Here are some guest speakers that we were able to get last year. They're all from different sectors of the Public Service Academy. Explorers is a program that is offered with Public Service Academy. It is basically a law enforcement work environment with a hands-on experience. I am part of the Explorers as of right now. I was able to gain leadership skills and other skills throughout the details and events that we do. Some events that we do is Laguna Seca, Old Beach, Gallo, and the Breaks. Some leadership skills that you can gain from here is you can go through the command staff rankings. You can start as a corporal, go as a sergeant, into a lieutenant and a captain. Once you're done with the Explorers, you can also transform into an FTE and still gain more experience after high school. Being in public service, we are in charge of Willie's closet. We make sure it is nice and clean in there. We have to wash and dry the clothes and hang or fold the clothes. This closet provides clothes for those in need from our school. Last year, the Public Service Academy went to the Women's in Uniform Conference. They got to meet the women in the law enforcement and hear about their experiences.
We've had many public speakers come talk to us from military to law enforcement. The teacher experience is an important factor because you need a teacher that can tell you the reality that occurs in public service careers.
Okay. And then there's a second video, so I'll take a minute to show that as well.
The Public Service Academy is a career interest pathway that students take to learn about the skills and standards of different professions within public service. We gain knowledge through classroom, project work-based, and guest speakers in different public safety careers that take their time off to explain and discuss a day in life and their career. The Livingston Police Explorer program is a program within the Public Service Academy in which we as students are allowed to be part of and get hands-on experience and training on law enforcement careers and the criminal justice as a whole. Coming from an explorer myself, it is the best club to be part of to gain knowledge and skills that will be needed in the real world. As I was given an opportunity to go through the different command staff ranks, I have learned leadership skills such as communication, management, problem solving, and so many more, all within my 4 years of high school. Just participating and being involved in the program will help you learn discipline, respect, hard work, leadership, teamwork, confidence, and social skills. As you gain new skills, you are also helping your community and getting experience to be thankful for.
This class is a great class because it teaches you about different careers in public service. I learned a lot about the criminal justice system as well as other police agencies. One thing I really like about this class is that sometimes we work in groups, which helps us with our communication and collaboration skills. Not only that, this class will teach you skills that you will use in other jobs outside of public service.
Okay. All right, awesome. So I just want to thank the students that created that. Alondra V, Jorwar R, Satwan R, Natalia G, Brianna E, Jose A, Haley S, Dayanara V, Angel C, Harpreet K, and Lovepreet K. So we're really excited about this pathway because we're the only school in the district that offers this CTE pathway. Last year we had 77 students in the pathway, this year 123. And so we were excited because this is the first year that we've had the full pathway. So all 3 courses are available for students to take. So we thought this would be a really great opportunity to showcase this and then share it with the public and everyone else to see. So do we have any questions about that?
Thanks, Mr. Jolly. Thank you, Mr. Jolly.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. You got a great guy running this there.
Agreed. I'm very excited. You know, he's always looking at next steps. You know, what are some more certifications that we can work toward? CPR certification, things are a little bit different right now, of course, but we're still working together and finding different ways to have more opportunities for kids in this pathway. So, and of course, the goal is always grow it, perhaps even, provide other kinds of opportunities. So we're excited about that.
Well, and it could provide opportunities for students at other campuses too.
Exactly. Yes.
So, Mr. Jolly, is Mr. Harding available, or is he out seeking out the next pathway?
He's not on here right now, but I could definitely pass any questions and bring them back or share them.
And it's great to know that I think he started with us about 2 years ago, and to see where he's at now and creating these various pathways for our students speaks volumes to the level of work and his interest in making this happen for our kids. So kudos to him, all right? Thank you guys both.
I completely agree.
Thank you, sir. So we'll continue on with you, Mr. Jolly, with your slide principal's report, please.
Okay, sure, thanks. So, principal report is really a great opportunity to just sort of share the things going on at the school. I have a lot to say, and, I'm not sure, but I'm open for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and just share some different things that we have. I do just want to sort of share, one of the things that's come up is just attendance. So who's here? What does our enrollment look like? We have right now, when we began signing up for our hybrid model, we had about 45% of students saying that they would like to be in person and 55% that wanted to do distance learning. So that number has stayed a little bit. Livingston, we chose to extend our time to give almost all the way until the Sunday before we came back for parents and families to make a decision about what they would like to do. So that meant that counselors had about 200 changes that they made, and individual changes between students of online, distance, depending on what they wanted to do. So when we started now it's 2.5 weeks ago, we were really ready, and we knew that we gave every opportunity to our students to be able to make the choice that's best for their families. In terms of what we've seen sort of as a trend, which I understand is in other places too, it could be the cold weather. Our actual in-person numbers are a little bit lower. And so students are instead of choosing to Zoom from home. So we're looking at about, instead of that 45%, we're around our mid-30s. 30% of students are coming. So at a school that's normally about 1,200, we're looking around 200-ish students here on campus. So that's been very interesting. It's been an adjustment. It's been it's a spirit lifting thing for staff and students as well. When they were first coming, they were just saying, I really am so glad I'm back at school. I just can't be at home anymore. So having this hybrid opportunity has been really great for them. And then also just, I think most importantly too, giving the option of what to choose. So that's been really great. Recently, in terms of this semester, we just completed, and we're in the middle of a couple left of Seal of Biliteracy. So that's been a great thing to sort of celebrate here. We have a great participation rate. We had 11 juniors complete the Seal of Biliteracy process this year. So they're automatically going to receive their seal next year as seniors when they graduate. 26 seniors passed this year. Last year we had 12. And so altogether that's 38 students this year that will be getting their seal. And then we had 4 students that are kind of in the middle of this, just because the languages that they are going through the process with are ones that took a little bit more time to find readers. But it's really exciting though, is that 40 students last year, all together are doing this, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. The platform had to change. There was a lot of adaptation, but students were very driven. We were very well supported by MCOE and all of our other staff here, and Ms. Rose and the counseling department as well with our counselors, to just make it possible. So that's exciting. It's a great recognition that students can put on resumes and move forward, showing that they do show that literacy in multiple languages besides English. So that's very exciting. In general, there's been a lot of changes to staff that we know. Staff have had to adapt. It's been a real big challenge. There's nobody that's not touched by the changes that we've had to make, but they show really great resiliency, flexible, and being adaptable. So I just feel like that's worth mentioning. Some days are a challenge, and so what do we do when that happens? It's just sort of take a minute and pause, and lean into the relationships that we have with one another, and that ways we've been setting up to be able to celebrate one another and collaborate. I think that's huge. Our staff wanted to recognize, and I think it's worth sharing, the shout out to our instructional coach, Rebecca Jackson. Every month they do a nomination of employees, teachers, recognized teachers who deserve to have some kind of recognition. and just overwhelmingly, normally she helps with that process, so she takes her name out of the list. We went around her and didn't let her do that, and so staff overwhelmingly behind her back nominated her for this great thing. So they just wanted to recognize that she's working day and night. I know she's here on the weekend, working with teachers, getting a classroom set up as they needed. So both she, Janice Edwards, our librarian, Mr. Mesa as well, our associate principal over teaching and learning, they've all been working very hard to get teachers what they need and to get started. And so I feel like that's worth mentioning. I have to say I'm proud of our athletics and sports. Mr. Scott Winton, our athletic director, does an amazing job in terms of making sure that everyone clearly understands what's expected in terms that norms are being followed, the protocols, and just in terms of making sure that we have the best. We've been a little conservative in the guidelines here. We want to obviously give all the opportunities. And so I feel like that's been appropriate. And so we're just going to keep moving forward with that. Obviously, we know there's some changes this week, but that's clearly communicated, very understood, and strictly enforced. So I'm very thankful that we have Scott Winton here. We also had a few shout outs directly for him from the community that they shared with me. So I thought that was really great. And I want to take this chance to publicly recognize him for that. Our activities director, Linda Gonzalez, is working really hard, still creating these opportunities. There's participation, all kinds of different ways to earn. We have an incentive program, Love Purple Points. And so going around and explaining those to what students are, onboarding our new kids, the freshmen who are, adapting to high school in this new, different situation. And so she's been really key into that, and that's been wonderful. We've done some sort of positives in terms of, how are we going to take a moment to just sort of pause? So our last staff meeting, we just said, hey, look, let's take a minute. We had a Padlet, recognized, gave shout outs to one another, and just, the page just exploded with things. I really feel like that's a testament to the wonderful culture here. And I think that's important to highlight and recognize. Some of the things people were sharing is just, we appreciate you, we feel like you're a friend to their colleagues. Times are tough and they're able to work together. In terms of more shout outs, again, like I said, this is an opportunity, I think, really to just talk about how wonderful staff have been. I feel like they deserve it. Our cafeteria staff have been amazing. They're out there with a smile, freezing cold, doesn't matter, in the mornings, helping everyone. Our custodial staff have been amazing as well. So just know that I appreciate them, and our staff do as well. Our counseling and guidance department, they've been working really hard. Like I said, they had over 200 changes that they had to make right before we got started. They've been making phone calls, doing home visits, just reaching out as much as possible to make sure we connect with students. They're available. They have counseling lunchtime at the after school as well. They have a Zoom. It's just an open forum. And so I feel like that's been really wonderful. And then parent workshops. So, we're still moving forward with things that we think are really important. We had a wonderful presentation by our school psychologist, Antonio Rodriguez, on just a sort of intro to mental health that was attended by parents. We've also had coffee Zooms with counselors, and then our student support manager, Raina Navarrete, also did a piece on mental health. So I feel like that's been really great. Let's try to put some tools in hands of parents. We also did Nurtured Heart Approach parent workshops through with Viviana Barajas and our team. That has been really great. We are continuing forward with implementing Nurtured Heart here. We have our champions on campus, our admin team, plus our instructional coach, and also our intervention center teacher, Danny Wright, have become certified trainers as well. And part of where we've started in terms of focus is with Wolfpack 9, which is our intervention group for freshmen. So we also have a senior teacher that's been working with our consultant and with the team. So that's been really awesome to see. Those are sort of the big things. I do want to just say this morning was a very interesting morning and a very unusual morning. So that's just maybe I'll pause for a moment. I don't know. Any questions for me right now so far?
You're doing great.
Okay. So I just want to take a minute to really recognize what I think makes our staff so amazing and beautiful. And it's huge. This morning about 7:30 over here on Peach, there was a pretty bad car accident, knocked out a telephone pole, pulled down another one, power lines were down. And 3 of our staff members were there right after it happened. They got out of their cars. They went immediately to secure the scene. They went to make sure that people were okay. They noticed a door was ripped off. You know, I don't want to get too graphic, but it was pretty bad. But Edith Hernandez, she's a science teacher here. She also teaches the Intro to Health Careers, the pathway teacher, responded to the scene. She was immediately applying first aid to a student, not our student, but a small student. And then we had Noe Aguilar also. He is our CWA, and Belia Ruiz, who is our attendance secretary. The three of them work together really as a team. They basically, what they described was exactly what you do in an emergency situation. Secure the scene, keep people away, don't let them walk on the power lines, help divert traffic until emergency services got there. It took a little bit of time, but you know, they did an amazing job, and we really believe they probably saved some lives this morning. So that's just really completely worth the work, worth a shout out. If we were somewhere, I would say they deserve a round of applause. But it doesn't stop there. You know, when they got to campus, they just witnessed a very traumatic thing. Any person that sees that, you know, regardless of your training and your immediate reaction to do the right thing in the right time and being in the right place, they were supported by our staff here. So, you know, taking a moment, checking in, making sure that they were okay, giving them space and just a sort of process. And so really that was another team effort. Our nurse, our other, you know, our administrators were here, our office staff, everyone, counseling is working together to just say like, hey, how are you guys doing, and work in. And so it's really a beautiful moment. It very much speaks to the family feeling here at Livingston High School, the attention to community and how caring everyone is. And so I just really think that it's huge, it's amazing, and I think they deserve to get a little shout out tonight.
I think they deserve a round of applause.
So that's sort of what I have. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer different things.
Hey, Mr. Jolly, with your first 2.5 weeks back with students on campus, what are you seeing as what's working for you guys, and then what are some challenges you are also seeing on campus?
Okay. Well, I think that, you know, what is working is students actually truly are following the protocols, and it's all hands on deck, staff reminding them. We really have not had issues with masks and things like that. Students are paying attention. You know, yes, their students occasionally need a little reminders here and there, but I really am impressed by their attention to it and their understanding that, you know, they're doing this for themselves and for others. And so that has been really, I think, a positive thing. There are a few challenges. You know, I mean, some students are still not used to what it means to be in a classroom and participate. You know, there's been a few issues with cameras that we're working out, that kind of thing. We're still, you know, obviously concerned about students that are not doing as well. So looking at getting the ones that need more help here, or finding how best to give them the help. So, you know, we've reinstituted Saturday Academy. We've been doing it virtually. We've had tutorial as well. And so just getting kids to every possible resource that we can think of, getting it out there and talking to them. And that's really the best response that we have. And sort of just ongoing thinking and looking and reflecting, you know, hey, what else can we do? So I would say that that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
How's the morale of staff and students on your campus?
So I think the students that are here, when you see them, they're glad to be here. I think that they feel obviously like it's a little bit different, but then they have the choice of tables to sit at during lunch and plenty of space. You know, a school that used to have 1,200 that now has about 200 on campus is pretty significant. So there is that. Staff, I would say, you know, realistically, yeah, there's a stress level, but I think that the spirit of we're just going to keep adapting and we're here for kids is really kind of what I think is still driving staff. But in general, I think when challenges come up, they are reaching out for help when they need it. You know, and that's sort of an ongoing thing that we'll be working with, you know, putting more tools. Our student support manager, you know, weekly sends out, at least weekly, little reminders of things, you know, hey, here's some things you can do to help your own mental health. And then you could also share this, and she shares that with students as well. Because it is a challenge. You know, this has been a big growth opportunity for all staff to really kind of see, like, how do we manage something that's like this, that's so disruptive to our lives. But I would say in general, staff are here to work, and, you know, they're here for the kids. So they're working through it. Kids are actually really nice as well in terms of, that's okay. I notice this isn't working. That's okay. We'll move forward. So there's sort of a nice feeling there, considering all the circumstances.
That's great to hear. Thank you. It's much appreciated. I think it's, yeah, it's just a wild, wild time, and everyone, and generally speaking, positive attitude has been tremendous. I know we all have rough days that our times are harder to get through. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you.
So I'm very proud to work here. I'm proud to work with our students and our staff, and just community members too that take their time to share what they see with their own children, and that, and I feel like that's important to make sure I share that with staff when I get feedback like that, to just let them know, look, you guys you're being recognized and seen, and that's huge. Just because, being in a classroom can be isolating, and to just know that, yeah, you are appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jolly.
Jolly, we have about how many students now enrolled or attending?
So the number that should be, or the number that we're seeing on a daily basis?
Yeah, the number you think of students attending on the campus.
Yeah. So the average is about 100. Well, I ran just, a few days. It should be 274 and 269. Those are what our two A and B schedule groups are. The average, though, is between 188, 190, 200 is what we're seeing with that. I would have to say part of it too is, there's one of the big challenges we've been adapting to is collecting attendance and making sure it's accurate and correct. But that, of course, is a lot of work done by our AP over attendance and our attendance office, our attendance office is amazing. They do a really wonderful job. They're very adaptive as well. Anytime we need something, they're ready to step in. So
that's about 16% then, right? Of 1,200, about 16% attendance, you think? 16?
Well, if we take the two numbers together of actually showing up, we're about 33%.
Okay.
Yeah. About 400 into 1,200 is about 33%. Right. Actually showing up in person. And that's kind of the other thing too, is asking, hey, where have you been? I have a niece that goes to one of our schools as well. And, she said, well, my friend has just said, well, I can stay at home. So that's what I'm doing. But, I'm like, well, then that must be rough. Your friend you eat lunch with, can't, but, of course she's okay. She has other friends, but, that's kind of thing we're hearing is that, students are choosing to just stay at home, and it could be for multiple reasons, but they are still checking in. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, my son's doing the same thing. He'll be there, but if he's not feeling up to it, he'll stay home.
Yeah.
Like today, for first period, he wasn't able to log in, and I just got a text that he was absent the whole day. So I'll look into that tomorrow. But anyways, yeah, same thing.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Jolly. You're appreciated as well. I hope you know that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you as well.
Sure.
Hey, Richard, do you think that we maybe should take a minute to explain the new format here? Because I'm not sure if everyone knows, like, why some of us are wearing masks and how the audio is working.
Of course. So we're trying something new. We had a bit of an issue with some technical issues at the last board meeting. So we are going to try this via Zoom. Mr. Rohrback, is that correct? Okay, so we've got some of the trustees here in person. Obviously, we're masked and following all the protocols. We do have a couple of trustees who have checked in online, so they're available via Zoom also. But we're trying to make it as easy and accessible as possible to the public. So you are engaged with us as much as we want to be engaged with you. So we do appreciate your flexibility as we try new things here at MUHSC. We want to try to mirror what the expectations are for our students and staff, and that is to be present as much as possible and doing it in person. And so we are taking that approach, and we're hoping to stay with this approach and even extend it further with bringing everybody on board sometime in the future. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll go go ahead and move on now to the general public comment period. There were about 12 public comments that were sent to Mrs. Warbeck by this afternoon at noon as per our protocols. We do allow 3 minutes per speakers, no more than 20 minutes per topic. All 12 of those comments have to do with the return to learn update, and so we will have those comments be read off during that board report. Okay, so thank you very much. We will now move on to the report and discussion items only. We'll start with 11.01, and that's the multi-tiered systems of support survey results. We have Dr. Aguilar and Matt Coleman from Inflection who are going to present. Welcome, both of you. I'm sorry.
Mr. Lopez, may I interrupt and ask you to repeat that they need to choose gallery view to see
Okay.
other than just the screen with the phone on
I
it?
think I heard you right.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, I'm getting reports that were hard to hear, so if we would speak up, please. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for getting back to Mrs. Warbeck, so we can be clear with you as we participate in this Zoom meeting. Once again, if you're not on gallery view, please do so at this time. Thank you. Dr. Aguilar, welcome, sir.
Yes, thank you, President Lopez. Over the course of the last 3 years, the Merced Union High School District has had the opportunity to be involved and implement a multi-tiered systems of support. Throughout this process, we've learned that there are a variety of levels to serve our students. And through that, we have found that we need to have survey data so that we can, one, understand what is happening at our schools and what adjustments we need to make as we move forward. During a board meeting about a few months ago, I presented the Learning Continuity Plan. And in that, there is a lot of initiatives that we said that we were going to provide to ensure students' learning would continue during this COVID-19 time period. We've been fortunate to partner with Dr. Matt Coleman from Inflection, coming to us tonight from Eugene, Oregon, to collaborate with the Ed Services team to put together a very comprehensive survey that over 5,700 students responded to in our district. We want to ensure that the social emotional learning, the well-being, and the engagement processes are being implemented and implemented successfully. So tonight, I'll hand it over to Dr. Matt Coleman, who will review the report, and we'll make time for questions here throughout the presentation. Dr. Coleman.
Thanks, Costa. Can I get a thumbs up if you guys can hear me? Very good, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the work that's been happening in the schools and specific to multi-tiered system support. And I'm going to jump right into the actual document and the presentation. What I would suggest is I'm going to take about 5 minutes. I'm going to try a bit of a sprint, and I'm going to cover each of the 3 areas, the data, and some of the what we call now what, so what, in terms of what the data may be saying and what we would suggest in terms of next steps. And I'm going to suggest that I kind of sprint through that, and as you identify questions, maybe write those down, and then we'll have about 5 minutes to talk about questions after I present. Does that work for folks? I'm going to assume it does. One of the pieces that's really important with this work, and specifically the survey, and from a multi-tiered perspective, is that we need to ensure that we're asking kids and hearing from kids what their needs are and what their experiences are. And in this survey, we look at specifically in terms of needs, we're looking at social emotional learning needs and as well as well-being, student well-being. In terms of their experience, we look at student engagement, but it breaks down into kind of 3 critical pieces: sense of belonging, sense of connection, and then the actual sense of engagement. And so what we're gonna look at is the data that came back, as Costa mentioned, for the 6,000 kids that took the survey. And we're gonna talk about implications. And so we're gonna start with social emotional learning. And this part of the survey actually comes from the Center for Center for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, CASEL, which is well regarded and well received across the country in terms of one of the preeminent folks in terms of specifically social emotional learning. And they partnered actually with the district in Nevada to create a short form 17-item question survey around SEL. And what you see on the screen is right now is the way that the data broke out is you've got the different questions. There were 4 questions specific to self-awareness. There were 3 questions specific to social awareness, and you've got 6 questions around self-management. What the percentages represent is the questions kids were asked, as reflected on the previous screen. The kids were asked to questions like knowing what my strengths are under self-awareness, and they were asked on the scale up from very difficult to easy to very easy for each of the questions. So what you see on these 4 questions, and we'll look at the first question, question number 1, 67% of the kids across the district identified that knowing their strengths is very easy or easy. And so question 3, for example, knowing my the emotions I feel, 66% of the students identified that it was easy or very easy. What we're looking for, and the reason that we highlighted some red in self-awareness, and you'll notice question number 2 was in black for the district as a whole, is that anytime you dip below 70%, it really should be something you start to pay attention to. It should be something that you're looking to react to. And so when you take a look at all of these that you see, we're looking at that 70% threshold as where we want to be above 70%. In this particular case under self-awareness, you can see that 3 of the 4 items in terms of the questions dip below that. And what we broke out 4 distinct student groups, Black students, Latinx and Hispanic students, white students, and students who identify LGBTQ+. And you can see the sample size in terms of the number of students. We're also looking at where there are some pretty big discrepancies. And you can see specifically around self-awareness that for all 4 of the items, students who are in that group identified it to be more, there were fewer kids that identified it to be, identified that knowing their strengths was easy or very easy. And those differences become important, and I'll speak to that here in a second. In terms of social awareness, kids were knocking it out of the park across all groups, which is pretty cool and is definitely a strength for the district as a whole. And then we get to self-management. And I identified and listed the 3 questions, 8, 10, and then 12, that spoke to getting through things even when even when I feel frustrated is question 8, finishing tasks even if they are hard for me, and doing my homework even when I do not feel like it. Those all fall under self-management. There's a handful of other items, but I pulled those 3 out. And again, you can see that across the district, that's an issue. And so when you look at all students, when you look at, for example, under the first one, getting through things even when I feel frustrated, for Black students, it appears that there's a bit of a lower score and a discrepancy there. And when you look at, again, students who identify LGBTQ+, you can see that across the board in terms of self-management, the actual scores are lower. What I want to do is I kind of want to very quickly touch base on as to why that is important and what is it suggesting. So when you think about self-awareness and the fact that the scores were low across the board for all students, and again, significantly lower for students who identify LGBTQ+, you need to think in terms of a universal response. In other words, this is not something that you solve by creating strategic or intensive or small group or individual approaches. It's really about looking at what you're doing for all students. One of the pieces that in a similar way, when you look at self-management, you see is very low for persistence and resilience, what we would deem persistence and resilience, and significantly lower for students, again, who identify LGBTQ+. This is an issue at high schools everywhere. This isn't unique to Merced. We are working actively right now with 50 different high schools, including all of your high school programs, including the Alta Ed in the Merced Adult School. We've got another 40 plus schools that we're working with actively right now. And this is an issue we see everywhere. This is an issue we see in terms of why kids, and this is across the country, kids that go on to a post-secondary setting often don't complete within 6 years. You think about a 4-year college. And what we know is a lot of it has to do with lack of self-management. And so this is not unique to Merced. That said, it is an issue. And it's one that requires a universal response. Part of that universal response really is going to come in the form of instructional design and how you think about the way, specifically around self-management, the way that you're structuring learning opportunities. And a term that we like to use is this idea of opportunities for productive struggle. Kids need that and need to be explicit with having to kind of work through things that are challenging at the instructional level. As you guys know, I know that the staff knows this, and I think the board may know this. We do a lot of work with the College Board. We've got a long-term relationship and deep relationship with the College Board who runs the AP program. We also do research for the International Baccalaureate. We are doing a major study for IB right now. We're in the midst of it. And this idea of productive struggle is something that we're looking to elevate. And they're looking to elevate as part of their program because they know this is a huge piece. Self-management is a huge piece. Let's look at student well-being. The way that these questions were asked, students were asked to think about during the past week, how often did they feel happy, optimistic, and hopeful? And then on the not so positive side, how often they feel lonely, worried, and afraid? And so what, again, the numbers show is that 63% of the kids identified feeling happy many times or all the time, 44% optimistic, 54% hopeful. On the negative feelings, there was, percentage of kids who only once in a while or almost never felt lonely or almost never felt worried. You gotta love high school age kids. They might be worried, but they're not going to tell you they're afraid. And I think that is a function of what we see in the data right here in terms of, above 70% saying they're not afraid. I think that's a little bit of a function of just the age of the students. Again, when you break it out, we looked at potential discrepancies, and you can see that there are some differences here. When you look at Black students versus all students, or if you look at the different groups in terms of Latinx and Hispanic as well as white, and then significantly lower for LGBTQ+. These 6 questions really align well with the California Healthy Kids Survey. So I anticipated that this is what we would see specifically for students who identify LGBTQ+, because what we know from the California Healthy Kids Survey, there's a number of outcome measures or other measures that they look at. For example, suicidal ideation is significantly higher for students in that group. And it's something that I think also it's important to note. One, it's a little bit the age of the kids, just in general, in terms of being teenagers, in terms of positivity and feelings, positive and negative. But I also think there's definitely a pandemic impact. I myself have multiple teenagers, 2 seniors, and a freshman. And COVID and the pandemic and everything that's kind of gone along with it has really driven it's been challenging in terms of how we feel or how they feel specifically. I want to dive a little deeper here around the now what. So for example, we saw low across the board, but again, specifically for 2 groups, Black students and LGBTQ+, there's some significant differences there. We need to think in terms of how do we respond universally? And I'm not talking major like key moves or big plays. I'm talking what are the little things that we can do in a universal way that reaches all kids. One thing that we need to do and that you need to do is that you and your schools need to engage specifically with your Black students and your LGBTQ+ students in what are called empathy interviews. And what it is it's a process of really identifying and having groups of kids and individual kids identify when you feel happy, what do you see, what are you doing, what are you experiencing, what are you feeling? And what you do is you collect information through an interview process, and then you try to extract different ideas to build into your universal approach. Now, as I mentioned, the feeling positive and not feeling negative are challenges across the district and across all groups of students. So it's something universally that needs to be addressed. But what becomes important in terms of how you respond is you look at the students that are furthest from opportunity, the kids that are, in this particular case, are feeling less positive or even more negative than other groups. That's where you want to go initially first to identify what are the strategies that we may look to employ that's going to support those particular groups of students while also supporting all students. All right, the last piece is around student engagement, and it's broken into three different ways of thinking about it. It's belonging, connection, and engagement. The way we think about this, and our heads are wrestling with this idea of recovery learning. If you're going to learn, learners are engaged. Kids that are engaged are connected, and kids that are connected feel like they belong. And it's that progression of you've got to feel like you belong to connect. You've got to belong and connect to engage. You've got to belong, connect, and engage to learn. And these are really important things in terms of capturing the student's experience. The way that these questions are laid out, a question like under belonging, I feel accepted at this school for who I am. That was a yes or no, don't know. The questions with the 3 dots, I get what I need to be successful in. The responses were all of my classes, more than half of my classes, less than half of my classes, none of my classes. There's a lot of information here, and I'm just going to highlight a few things. Question number 1 around sense of belonging. Again, when you look at the district, belonging and connection actually plays pretty well, district as a whole. And you'll see some that are in red, and we'll touch on those a little bit. But overall, high levels of belonging and connection. And I'm confident as we do this survey with many of the other schools in our 40, you guys are the first. I'm confident you guys are going to stand above others based on what I know of the other schools and other districts. The thing that I think is critical as you look at, you should feel good about belonging connections. Your site should feel good about it. You need to look at some of the different groups. And I'm going to point out again, we're just going to start to identify a few. The 46%, I mean, that is a huge difference. And that is at the school level, I feel accepted for who I am in this school. Kids, again, 813 kids who self-identified LGBTQ+, 46% basically said no. 46% said yes. So 64% said no. 54% said no or don't know. When you look at what I am learning is relevant to who I am in, and that's all of my classes, more than half of my classes, less than half of my classes. When we say 46% identify that what they are learning is relevant to who they are in more than half their classes or all of their classes. And so that's that 40%, 6%. Again, we would want that to be pushed up. I'm going to highlight number 4, question 4. Again, you can see 64% of students LGBTQ plus, and then 74%, and then 81%, and 93% for white students. And that question was, I feel accepted for who I am in all of my classes, more than half my classes, less than half, et cetera. That high number, 93%, if you say, okay, as a district as a whole, we're at 80%, love the fact, I mean, and I'm sincere about this, that there's an increase from students in this particular group, LGBTQ plus group, who feel accepted for who they are. Love the fact that when it's school as a whole, I hate the fact that it's 46% school as a whole, but I love the fact that it goes up. But this difference, I believe, and I believe the literature would bear this out, may be connected to the fact that the majority of your staff, your teaching staff, are white. And it points to something that for me is a little bit of an aside, because the reason we're doing this is all about MTSS and it's all about what's happening instructionally. But it's an aside just in the sense that from an HR perspective, continuing to diversify your staff is critical. And it's critical, I believe, in the sense that 93% you see a significant difference, and this just pops out as an outlier, positive outlier. And I think one of the logical connections is to think in terms of seeing themselves, white students seeing themselves in their teachers, because that question is specific to at the classroom level. You can look at the connections pieces. I'm gonna kind of skip ahead a little bit. Sorry, there we go. And the last section of this, again, belonging, connection, engagement. What you see is three of the scores, questions 12, 13, and 14 that make this up. I enjoy learning new things in. I have regular opportunities to choose topics that interest me in. I express my opinions and preferences in. Again, you see low scores across the aggregate, across the whole. And you see some disproportionality. You see some differences between, again, the experience of Black students and students who identify LGBTQ+. This is really critical in the sense that, you know, if I look at your scores as a whole, just again for the district, your sense of belonging, your connections are actually really good. And then your engagement, it falls off. And you can see that the way the questions are structured, a lot of engagement is about, do I see myself? I may feel like I belong and I connect with my teacher and my school and my class and kind of in the environment. But do I see myself in the curriculum? Do I see myself in the learning? Am I actively engaged in terms of being able to choose topics that interest me and to be an active member of the learning environment? And that's where it starts to fall off. And I'm confident, we know, just understanding high schools, that this is an issue really for all schools. So this is not unique to Merced. And later in the year, I'll be able to come back and give you a little bit more, a little bit of data and be able to compare you with the same survey set against some other schools and some other districts in California. I kind of referenced this, it's sounding a little bit like a broken record. One of the things that we're going to be looking to do is we're going to break this data down by school, and we're going to look for bright spots. We're going to look for in some of those individual items where potentially, and I'll use this as an example, it's not a real example because we haven't run the data yet, but let's say Livingston High School is doing a better job around something like engagement specific to students who identify as LGBTQ+. And so maybe students in that group identified they do have they have a higher percentage of kids that have regular opportunities to choose topics that interest me. If that's the case at Livingston High, we want to go to Livingston High and really kind of figure out, what are you doing? And is it a little thing, a key move that could happen across the system? One of the big pieces that jumps out in this is that, and this is some key recommendations that I would make, is that you all need to really think about defining engagement as a district and putting systematic value to it. Part of that is to elevate it from an MTSS perspective to really make sure that we're looking and teachers are looking to develop a level of engagement that has a level of similarities, and so you can start to be looking at and supporting this idea of universal every period, every day. Levels of engagement, sense of belonging, connection, et cetera, for each group. So I feel like I'm like running, and I'm going to stop now. And before I give some recommendations and potential next steps in terms of the data, I'd love to open it up for some questions.
When was this survey taken?
Great question. About 3 weeks ago. And one note with that, there is definitely a pandemic impact. So I don't want to sit here and suggest that, you know, if we were to take this survey again in October, that of next October, and let's assume we're kind of back to some semblance of normal, that there may be some significant differences that were pandemic influenced, including distance learning. So I don't want to discount that at all.
Well, and I imagine even next October, the number will be pandemic inflated because kids, if they're across the board allowed back in the classroom, the level of engagement, whether it's, I don't know. Sorry.
It's good data because pandemic influenced or not, that's where we are. So
Yes.
that influence is what we need to know, and it's very lightning and useful data.
Well, and we spoke actually at length during the session about just how much kids are struggling to be engaged in class, right? Whether they are a distance learner or an in-person learner, engagement is really it's like we've lost our kids right now. And when you touched on, the piece about, perseverance and resilience, it's not there, right? They're not pulling up their bootstraps and being willing to even be taught necessarily every day. It's a real struggle, and I say that knowing that our teachers are doing an excellent job. They are working very, very diligently, and yet, you know, when kids don't want to get out of bed, it's real hard to even get there when they turn their back to the screen or don't even turn the screen on. They're there for attendance and not much more. It's super hard to engage our kids. So I very much look forward to your recommendations, because I think, you know, we brought our kids back. We offered the choice to families, knowing that we have students, an exorbitant amount of students struggling with B's and F's, and then another population really with some social emotional issues. And so I don't know how to even break this apart from what is pandemic and what is not. It is all right now, and it's what we have to address, right?
And I so appreciate everything you just said, and I would just encourage you to hold any kind of almost judgment. I am going to throw some recommendations out there, because some of this data applies against what we knew before the pandemic, and this is, as an organization, what we focus on is post-secondary readiness, and specifically self-management is a big issue that gets in the way. We send too many false positive kids out there, and I'm not talking about COVID tests. I'm talking about kids that have great grades and transcripts full of AP, and they've hit the mark in terms of A to G, and they go to the university and they don't complete, because they didn't develop the ability to self-manage. Things were kind of, it was almost too easy. They didn't have to engage in productive struggle. The thing I would say, though, is this: within probably the next month to month and a half, we will have data from schools from Huntington Beach, from Anaheim, from Vista Unified, which is down in San Diego, North San Diego County, and from Pittsburgh High School in Pittsburgh, California. So we're going to have as well as some other schools from Oregon. We're going to have a much richer data set to actually be able to draw some comparisons. And I know you guys well, and I'm confident you're actually going to, what you may look at and go, oh gosh, we've got to get after that. We would say, yeah, you do, because it is in the moment. But we're confident you're probably going to score better than other schools. The other thing to note is that this is the way I think about this particular survey. It is a back of the hand to the forehead. It is there, do we have a temperature? It is not a diagnostic. It is not it's what we call it a practical measure. It took kids about 10 to 12 minutes to take, and it is intended to drive action. Now we've got a grant from a foundation who's allowing us or funding us to actually look at, can we use this at 3 points in the year? Can we use it in October, February, and April? So that if you get something like well-being and kids not feeling real positive, what are the little things you can do over the next 3 months to try to move the dial on that particular measure, to try to have the uptick? What can you do, within the community and within schools to make a difference with different groups? And can 3 months later we see an uptick in this measure so you can use it to track progress over time, and kind of that concept of return on investment. We're going to try something and see what the return is in terms of trying to impact either individual groups or the collective, or both. And does that make sense?
Yeah, Matt, are you right at the beginning of this process in working with schools, or where are you on that continuum?
Yeah, we're right in the process of as just like everybody else in the world of education, we've had to shift our model. So we right now are actively working with all of your high school programs. I have one-on-one meetings monthly with your school leaders. I met today, so there's one-on-one meetings every month, and also every month with about a 2-week interval, we meet in networked improvement communities. And so, for example, you've got some of your schools are partnering with some of our partners down in Vista, down in San Diego, Antonia, the thing about Lincoln High School in Denver, Colorado. So the idea being that your staff, I mean, we're talking about the same stuff, and this particular measure is critical in the work, because as we're working together one-on-one with your sites, but then as they're working with the networked improvement community, what we call networked improvement communities, they're helping each other try to figure out, how do we move the dial on sense of belonging for all kids or for this group of kids, et cetera. And it creates a platform where we're going to be able to learn from each other. You guys, and I so appreciate it, were the first to kind of say, all right, we'll push this out there. And so we are in the midst of doing a pretty deep level of analysis just to check the reliability of the measure and see how it holds together. We feel pretty good based on the initial set. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you yet. But we are going to do more work on it over the next year or two. And that, well, I'll leave it at that, but that folds into a recommendation. I'm going to pull my screen back up. Other.
No, I appreciate that. That's, you know, it's MTSS, but it's also student voice. You know, we're setting the baseline to gather this data, and it's a great start. So thank you.
I agree.
Don't judge, don't judge.
Oops. Can't find where my presentation went. All right, I know the recommendations in my head. The first one, the first recommendation would be to encourage you as a board to consider elevating specifically student engagement as a specific outcome measure that's part of your goal infrastructure for the board, for the superintendent. And not just, I mean, both social emotional well-being and social emotional learning, and specifically student management, and then the idea of engagement. And that is something that obviously you wouldn't do that now, you wouldn't do it tonight, but I would really, and we would really encourage you to include that. I have been saying, if you talk to Alan, if you talk to anybody who knows me and knows our work in our organization, it's a huge issue out there. College, career, and life readiness are one and the same. And the concept of self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, key elements of social emotional learning are all important in each of those aspects. And yet we don't elevate it. As part of that, and this measure may be something that you can use for this, we would encourage you to think about something like this type of measure that can disaggregate at the group level as a local measure in your LCAP. And that's kind of part and parcel with this idea of make it a goal and then actually, you know, include it as part of your accountability plan in terms of the LCAP. The next two pieces are really intentional work that's happening already, and we've got the infrastructure to be doing, and then I'm going to work with Costa and Torn on. The empathy interview process is really important to extract what kids say they need. And Alan, you hit the nail on the head. This is a student voice. This is your students telling you as a system what their needs are around SEL and student well-being, and what their experience is in terms of belonging, connection, and engagement. You need to react to it. And there's really strategic ways to do it that's informed by some of the best practices out there around what they call human-centered design. And that's the pieces that it's going to take small group, et cetera. I mean, you've got to get in and do some interviewing and then extract what some universal, and this is the MTSS part, the multi-tiered part, what some universal approaches are that you need to build and bake into your system. Then the other thing is to look for bright spots. There are teachers out there right now who have figured out the virtual thing. They figured out how to get kids to connect, engage, create a sense of belonging, connect, and engage virtually. I've got a son right now, it's 1 for 4 for him. He's at South Eugene High School in the Eugene School District. One of his classes, it's amazing. It's amazing. If he was an online learner and it was that one class is 4 times a day, he'd be killing it, but he's not engaging in the other 3. There's something about the bright spot that is the teacher in that one class where he's really been drawn in that we need to learn from. And we need to figure out what are the little things that they do? What are the key moves that they make that we can help spread across the system? The last thing is, and I keep saying this to your principals, so I'm going to say it to you all just so you know, make the important urgent. The important is, what does fall 2021 look like? The urgent is right now. The urgent, you know, and Chaz hit on it. Teachers are just being flexible, adaptable. Kids and families, everybody's doing what they've got to do, and there's many things to react to. this kind of work, we need to be focused on, yeah, we need to think about what's happening today, but I'm really encouraging your principals. It's a hard reset in the fall. There's an amazing opportunity to kind of reset some things. And at the school level, when we get back, and my assumption is in the fall, some semblance of quote unquote normal. Well, what's our new normal look like? And how can we elevate through our instructional design ways that reinforce this idea of self-management, student ownership and agency? I share that, and this is a connecting piece. I believe there will be federal dollars at some point, regardless of how the election plays out. I believe there'll be federal dollars, just like the stimulus dollars back in 2010, 11, 12, that's connected to what people are calling recovery learning. I think that if you take a focus on student management and developing student agency, you're going to be able to flexibly use those stimulus dollars that will come with strings attached in a way that can be universally applied. And I think that's going to be a really big deal. And so to you as a board and to your principals, and we keep saying, look, you got to do the work you got to do today. It's urgent, but the important work that has to happen today is actually how you're planning for next year when kids are back in full.
Amen to that.
Thank you, Matt. That was very, very helpful.
If you guys have any other questions, shoot them to Costa, and we can get back to you. If you got individual questions, get them to Costa, and we can respond to them in quick turnaround. So
thank you to the district for doing this work, because I think it's absolutely critical. And as we're trying to re-engage our students right now, and one of the reasons why we hoped students would come back to campus for the social emotional piece, and we weren't reaching them when everyone was on distance learning, but we didn't have enough students come back who are at risk. And I want to make sure that as we've collected this data, our counselors have access to it immediately, because students took 10 to 15 minutes to fill this out. They realize it's a survey, and they're one of 5,600 students who completed it, but depending on what their answers were, that may have been what they thought was a cry for help that they're expecting a response to. And it gives us an opportunity to reach out to a student who may not be individually asking. And as we're as a district wrestling with this and trying to figure out how to connect with these students, it gives us an opportunity to individually go to them and say, I heard you, how can I help you, and provide services. So are we doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
It validates it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it was meaningful and it wasn't just another thing that was given and then it gets filed away somewhere.
So do we have benchmarks set aside now or developed yet as far as what that's going to look like, say, January of 21, March of 21, June of 21? So we start to see that there is not examination, but there's an impact happening across the board to our students who are under that 70% threshold, And then also, when and how, do we begin to integrate some of these strategies, to help those students or all of our students in general? And then is there going to be professional development also tied to this? Because it sounds easy, but it's not. Obviously, it's not, because the data is showing us that we have issues out there across the board for all of our groups in various areas. So then, how do we start to address that to our staff and also to our students and our community in general? That we understand that there's an issue, with distance learning, the impact of the pandemic, and how can we help support students? And I think it ties back into many of the emails that we receive from staff as far as having those office hours where they could connect with kids who they knew were having difficulty. I think we already see that email today from Mr. Johnson, that students reaching out and how can he help the kid when, the times are set. So when does that all start to take place? And I know part of the discussion is what we talked about in closed session, but, start to bridge that gap so we start to support students based on their independent needs.
I think from Matt, you correct me if I'm wrong, but as you move through this with other districts and you gather data and a menu of options of, okay, well, what does MUHSD do well? What are their bright spots? And what are Anaheim's bright spots and what's Long Beach's bright spots, and we put those together, and that's kind of how I see this happening. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's the big idea is, I mean, we like to call them practical measures. They need to be easy to do, and in terms of 10 to 12 minutes. And then there needs to be a practical application. And Alan, you're absolutely right. This is what, don't get me started because I get really excited about this. Just to, there's a lot of little things that people do that nobody else knows about that are really effective. And that's the piece that we think we're going to be able to find as we grow our network. We're at 50 schools now. We'll keep expanding over the next several years of people doing this kind of work and then getting after it, learning from them, and then spreading it across our network, of which Merced is right in the middle of. The other one other little piece that I did forget to mention, when you think about these measures in particular, community and family engagement is huge. So there is a huge piece, a big piece that the school and the school system plays, but there's incredible opportunity for outreach to the various different types of community-based organizations, and then to engage families in different ways. When you think about some of the things we're talking about in terms of social emotional learning, as well as well-being, specifically those two buckets. So that's another piece that I would highlight for you that we'll be working on with you, and to Alan, to your point, with all the other districts that we're engaged and involved with.
To answer your question, President Lopez, and Matt just nailed one of them, the family engagement plan. So just going through just recently our federal program monitoring, we need to come back and redo our family engagement plan, which I will present to you in the early spring. So that will encompass this work. Our local control accountability plan, the measures in the survey, that's part of the engagement. Community stakeholder groups, the Merced County Schools LGBTQ+ Student Success Network. Hope I said that right. Met with them yesterday to go through the data, working with groups like your Merced Black Parallel School Board and other community groups to look at the data to begin to strategize. And like Matt mentioned, I do want to emphasize, Matt's team is meeting with our sites and principals, monthly, and then our school sites every other 2 weeks. So this work is already starting to move, even though we're in this situation that we're in.
Is this the survey that the El Capitan students took last year about this time? No, different survey.
Yeah, this is a completely different survey, and we were very, very intentional, and I want to thank the principals for just not sending anything out for 2 weeks, because it took us 2 weeks to gather all this data to get this number of students, because we realized it was very, very important data, and data that this board has asked for.
It was related. The LCAP survey, the Panorama survey, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was that or a different one, but it was around social emotional learning specifically, and elements of student engagement. So it's similar, but, and this is where, and I do have a measurement background. I am connected to the U of O and whatnot. Practical measures are different than the kind of measures that we're using. I mean, no disrespect to what LCAP did. The challenge with it is the so what, and to be able to do it regularly and on an interval, and to have many schools do it. And the reality is we're going to be able to do that with this tool, and we're going to work on that piece of it. So it was similar but different.
Can I ask a question? Matt, with this data, did you collect enough biographical information that you can go back and disaggregate it in a different way, say by age?
Yeah. Looking at 9-10 versus 11-12, I think there's a yes.
We would predict that there would be potentially more self-management in older kids. And I'm
thinking about my 17-year-old son, so I'm kind of going, no, not in my family, but yeah, no, I think you may be right.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll have a separate conversation, because I guess is this intensive enough for a district to move forward and begin making decisions? Because it seems kind of topical.
Yeah, it's the hand of the forehead, and so what it does beg the question: how do we go deeper? How do we collect other information? many, especially around self-management, totally resonates with me just on all the research we do as an organization, specifically around developing resilience and persistence and what kids don't walk into the post-secondary setting with. So it aligns with what I would expect, right? That's one form of kind of theoretical validation, but the idea, and I'm glad you're bringing this up, it is very much, oh, we might have a fever, we should look closer. We should look deeper. We should look at specific groups. That's what it's intended for. So would I make broad policy decisions on it? No. But would I look to collect other information to kind of validate, what you think you're seeing? Yeah, and there's ways to do that. I love the splitting at 9, 10, 11, 12 is something we're going to do. And in fact, and Cost and I, you and I need to talk about this, but Steve at Merced Adult School, we're going to throw in their range of ages is going to be another dark. We didn't do it with Merced Adult School because this is really designed about what is or isn't happening at the school level. And so we kept it essentially in a 9-12. But with the Merced Adult School, we're going to run it again. We're just going to throw another demographic marker on there specific to the different age ranges for adult students.
Socioeconomic status as well?
Yeah, we had that in there. Kids kind of struggle sometimes to know whether they're on it or not, especially at the high school level, because it's not just a language they speak. Now, we did this all, the whole thing was anonymous. So the students self-reported on things like free and reduced meals.
Okay, Matt, thanks very much. I appreciate your input on this.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, Dr. Adler, at a district level, when do we start to see, at the district level, how soon do we start to see the impact it's going to have on our kids? I know we're dealing with what we're dealing with now as far as the pandemic and distance learning and hybrid learning, but we have a problem now, and I don't want to wait 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road before we say, okay, now we've got a plan to put in place and we're going to launch it August of 2021. Now that's 8 months down the road. Well, we have to deal with what we have now. Obviously, we're seeing it with kids not being engaged, students not being in class, students just, shutting the screen down, like Trustee Hammer saying. Aside from, our counselors having to do a lot of this back-end work, what else is going to be needed so we can start the process now versus later?
Yeah, I think that you see some of the work that's been done over the last year in some of the results, especially with around identity. And Matt mentioned small plays. So there are little things that we can turn around and do now. As he's meeting with them, he is collecting those pieces of data or information so that we can begin to implement now, even during our distance learning environment.
And how soon do we start to look at our bright spots across the district as to what's working for these relevant groups or successful groups out there? So, like when does that start so we can get the ball going?
Yeah. So the goal was to begin giving this 3 times throughout the year. Once at the beginning, once in the middle, and once at the end. So we would like to have to have more discussions with Matt and his team, but we would like to have this survey go out again. At the end of the school year, and this becomes something cyclical, so that we can begin to analyze.
Costa, can I just, sorry, I'm just going to interject one thing. Literally in a conversation this morning with Yosemite, Sequoia, and Merced Adult School as part of a network improvement community. And one example that came up in terms of something just in time, specifically around engagement in the world of broadcast teaching, was the use of Zoom technology to capture some teachers that are doing it unbelievably, and to be able to use that to show other teachers this is how this person or that person. It used to be that, oh well, we need to get you a substitute and send you off and have you go to another school and be able to see it. We actually now, because of the pandemic, can capture what they're doing to connect and engage with kids in a virtual way that other teachers would be able to look at and wouldn't even have to leave their school or their setting. That idea came from Anaheim. that Anaheim started doing. They started figuring out, oh my God, we can capture bright spots right now and push it out in the moment so teachers can get some just-in-time support in terms of being able to see how their colleagues are doing it, and specifically their colleagues that are knocking it out of the park. So I know I referenced the amazing, I'm telling you, it's an amazing opportunity for a hard reset in the fall, but there's stuff that needs to happen now, and that is what we're working on. The idea is that we take these measures and we take a look at them and we say, all right, what are the little things and the key moves that we can make over the next 3 months to move the dial? And that, so there's going to be action. It's about action in the here and the now. Sorry, I'll get off now.
Thanks, Matt. Not bad for someone from the University of Oregon.
You know, I'm going to let Alan respond to that because I think he knows the quality of student that goes to the U of O.
Mr. Rohrbeck, can you delete him now, please? Thank you, Matt. All righty. Any other questions for Dr. Aguilar on MTSS? Move on to 11.02, Yosemite High School Comprehensive Support and Improvement Plan, and we're going to refer to Mr. Rogers via Zoom.
Good evening, President Lopez, board members, Superintendent Peterson, and Cabinet. My name is David Rogers, Principal, Yosemite High School, here tonight to discuss our school status as a CSI school and our plan for improvement in the future. Just to give you a little bit of background on CSI and the eligibility, CSI is the new program improvement that has come from the state. And when a school fails to meet a minimum graduation rate of 67% averaged over 2 years, you then become eligible for additional support and improvement, and that is what CSI is. All schools are eligible for this, including traditional and alternative schools. Some of the history of our graduation rate that we've had at Yosemite High School is in the 18-19 school year. We had a 61% graduation rate. The next year, we upped that to 72%. However, the 2-year average was only 66.5%, thus making us having to stay in CSI for an additional year. Some of the things that we're doing, and I do believe, Leslie, we need to go back one. I think it's slide 3, there we are. Continue monitoring and implementing what was started in year 1. Continue to monitor specific data points, credits earned, days of attendance, progress on our individual graduation plans with our seniors, which is the majority of the students we serve here. We did expand opportunities for credit recovery, academic support opportunities, and the biggest change has been to start providing seniors with a 5th-year option. This is a strategy used by most comprehensive sites across the state, and we've now just begun implementing it here, basically taking a student and assigning them to a grade based on their credits that they have when they come to us versus traditional moving them through the grades, kind of social promotion. We will continue to focus on state measures as far as around language arts, math, our CCRI indicators. Our successes from year 1 included embedding of nurtured heart into English and science, and our classes are listed below. Youth mental health, first aid, as well as learning in the brain in our science courses. For our year 2, we're going to continue everything we're doing in year 1, continue to look at interim benchmarks for ELA and math to help guide our instruction using data, begin having those intentional conversations around instructional practice through our collabs that we have here. We're continuing our work with inflection. We're in year 2, focusing on culturally relevant practices, purposeful learning, and transforming the student experience. Like Matt said, I was just meeting with him today, discussing those things. Becoming smart and better at using our data through Aries Analytics as an early warning system. We're going to be tracking a lot more of our use of interventions and how they're being successful, and looking to see what ones we can tweak and change. We routinely issue progress reports and have transcript reviews with our students so they know where they are. And we'll also, as we're in this plan, be meeting with Director Johnson on a monthly basis, reviewing that data, just so we have a second set of eyes on it and make sure we're moving forward. Overall, our goal for this year is to achieve an 80% graduation rate here at Yosemite. With that being said, are there any questions?
Well, given the pandemic, does that change anything? I mean, we're having students at traditional sites, grades are significantly down, so I'm just wondering what the impact is specifically at Yosemite.
You know, it is actually more acute here at Yosemite because the one thing that we really bring to the table is the small setting and the focusing on building that relationship. Thankfully, the juniors from last year prior to the pandemic are our seniors this year, so we're able to foster a lot of relationships and continue to build on those this year. But the distance learning is a hindrance to the students we serve here. If this continues on, I really do have concerns about our juniors because we're bringing them in and all they know us is through the computer. I think it was a very huge saving grace that we brought students back, especially for the students that we serve, so we can continue to build those relationships with them, even if it's on a limited basis. That is something that's critical for the population we serve.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Mr. Rogers, as far as your administering of the interim benchmark, how's that going, or have you guys done that yet?
We've done one iteration, and it's our pre-test, and so now we have teachers looking at that data, and we'll be giving a post-test coming up in the next few weeks.
And what has that data showed you so far then?
It shows us that there's a lot of gaps in their education, which is not a surprise to us, but it does help us to look at what this particular set of kids need. And one of the biggest needs we have, especially for our kids, is, you know, literacy and, you know, basically math and English skills is what they need.
And then as far as the tracking the amount and use of interventions, like what kind of interventions are we talking about? Are we talking the academic ones that impact student engagement and learning? Or are we talking about the interventions more on the implementation of the MTSS year 2?
We're talking about our traditional interventions, you know, the SSTs, you know, the 504s, IEPs that for kids. We're talking about universal interventions such as NHA, Nurture Heart approach, you know, looking at ways we can meet our kids' needs, you know, social emotionally. And really just trying to individualize an educational plan for the kids to make them successful. Are there any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Rogers?
Thank you for your focus on this.
Yes, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really proud that our district has Sequoia and Yosemite High School, and I think this makes a tremendous impact for all of our students, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm proud to be a part of this team and working with our kids.
Thank you, Dave. And on a side note, Dr. Egler, how much funding is tied with the CSI? I know at one point it was tied up with the county and now it's there. So, oh. Mr. Johnson, did you get the question?
How much funding was tied to it?
Sure.
It was $172,000 over 2 years. I'm not sure.
We're on year 2?
Yes.
And of that 172, how much of that has been expended then?
Well, it's all encumbered at this point.
Towards what?
Mr. Rogers has the list there of specifically what it was, but I think they had they added academic support, they added some CAP classes, they paid for Nurtured Heart. Am I hitting everything, David?
Yes, sir. I mean, we used it to have expanded credit recovery opportunities through Upgrade Labs, which is our credit recovery. So kids that have partial credits, we can address those needs. We also have expanded academic support. The expenditure amounts for the first year were $92,000. The second year was $80,507, primarily used for those things, as well as paying for the consultant for Nurtured Heart, who's been working with our staff and getting them trained as certified trainers, of which we have currently 10. We just added one from this year. She's also been working with other programs that I oversee, most notably CDC, and it has worked with Sequoia as well.
And when you guys talk about the expanded academic support, what does that mean or what does that look like?
What that is they are assigned to a classroom with a teacher that helps them, you know, stay focused and motivated on getting their work done. It's essentially kind of like a study hall, teaching them organizational skills, that type of things. A lot of our kids don't have that type of support at home, and they get it here with us. We also have Assets after school program where we have tutoring from California teaching fellows that help support them. They also do it via Zoom for those who are distance learners. So those are some of the examples of interventions we're running.
And Mr. Johnson, what's the timeline for us to see this improvement, or what's the next step if we don't, for whatever reason, meet what's expected from the CSI?
The timeline is this year. The graduation percentage is, or the graduation formula for Alt Ed is they get a 1-year graduation rate. They don't have a 4-year cohort. So we'll know in June.
Correct.
Well, you've made awesome progress at Yosemite. So, thank you to you, Mr. Rogers, and to Mr. Jolly, who just vacated there, to go from 60% to more than 70 and to now have a goal of 80. That's tremendous.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Move on now to 11.03, the grade reporting timeline. Dr. Aguilar.
Thank you, President Lopez. I just wanted to report about some subtle changes that were made this semester to accommodate our students. The first quarter ended on October 30th, which was a change. Intersession began on November 2nd, and it just concluded on November 13th. During that intersession, as we'll talk about here in our next report, was used to have students raise their grade, turn in additional work and such. So to give teachers some time to update grade books, the grades were just recently turned in here on November 17th, and that is a change in the timeline. As a reminder, our first semester does end on January 14th. And one of the things that I do want to highlight is during that intercession and moving into our holiday recess here for winter, because there is a move in the grading at the end of the semester, we've made sure that every site is going to contact parents and students that have a D or an F as a notice. The grades are going to impact student activities, especially as we begin to open up with athletics. So we want to make sure that parents are aware. And lastly, all of the timelines that we had proposed were very agreeable to all of our teachers, and we're very thankful for that extended period of time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Dr. Aguilar on that? Okay. Move on into 11.04, the update to the return to learn in person. Dr. Aguilar.
I will start this out, President Lopez, and I want to start it out with a quote from a teacher I talked to this week, and he said, "Alan, we are doing the very best we can. This is extremely hard." This has been the most difficult year of probably most of our teachers' careers, certainly our administrators and mine, and we are making the best progress we can. At this time, we have made a very good transition to students coming in person, but as you know, moving into the purple, whether it's the weather, a lack of engagement, or whether it's easier, the numbers that we started with were 60-40 in person versus distance learning. I think those numbers are flipping, and probably by the time Thanksgiving break gets here a week from now, we'll be 60-40 the other way. So we recognize the difficulty. We're trying to reduce the barriers for staff and students the best we can. I do want to put to bed tonight a rumor that is out there about us going away from the AB rotation and having everyone come back. That has never been a discussion at the board level, at the cabinet level, or any level in this district. What we are doing right now is offering our at-risk students to come every day if they want to, and we will aggressively be pushing that. But as far as anybody else, I mentioned in a memo this week that possibility may be real, but it may be real at some time. And for tonight, I would say for our general population, that would be after the first of the year, and certainly depending on what tier we're in. So with that, I will hand it to Mr. Weimer, who will talk about enrollment and some numbers.
So you have some numbers there in front of you. One of the things we were worried about going into this year fiscally was that in previous downturns in the economy, we've had declining enrollment. We usually have lost 100 students a year when we've had economic struggles in the past. That has not been the case for this year. We are up 276 students from last year. We are up 649 students from 5 years ago. We have two schools, Atwater and Merced, that are up over 100 students from last year alone. Livingston and Buhack are the only two schools that are down in enrollment, and they're not down that much. The number of unduplicated students for the district who qualify for Title I supplemental concentration funds is up 483 students. So you'll see that is more than the number of new students. So that means existing students are now qualifying more for those services as well. So a large number of our incoming students, but current students are now doing that. So our families are feeling this time period and this economic downturn. The increase in enrollment for this year, unfortunately, is not going to help us any with ADA. ADA was going to be fixed at the 19-20 school year, last year's level, because a lot of people were worried about losing students, and so the state fixed it on last year's money. So we will not get increased money for ADA with our increased enrollment. There was a way that the state had set up that you could ask for that, but we don't qualify for the rules that they put in place to qualify for that. These numbers were at the beginning of last week, excuse me, when we put the presentation together. At that point, 52% of students had returned to in-person learning on the AB model. And you could see where Buhack was the lowest at 47%, and Atwater was at the highest at almost 57%. Those numbers have come down from now. You've heard the anecdotal data. On the next slide, you'll see why it's kind of hard for us to get an actual count of how many that is, but we're probably looking at the numbers being closer to the mid to low 40% by the time that we head into Thanksgiving for the numbers that I've seen in the last couple of days coming in from the sites.
Mr. Weimer, or Dr. Weimer, on that, with the increase of our ADA, now we're not going to receive obviously that extra funding. How does that impact the increase of the unduplicated students in our district? Are we going to receive the supplemental and concentration funds for those kids, or they're free on everything?
The supplemental and concentration funds, we should see the increase for.
Okay, so we're going to get some dollars.
We'll get the same number of students, but we'll get a higher percentage of the supplemental. So we will see a little bit for the supplemental concentration. This one gives you a little bit of an insight into the world that the state of California has entered us into for distance learning. There were large reactions in the legislature about what they did not like about what happened in the spring. And so they pretty much went overboard on the requirements and the paperwork and things that they're going to require that we do. So this kind of gives you an idea and an insight into what our teachers have to do every day. And it'll be part of a reason how you can see why we can't tell you exactly how many kids are in our district on any given day, because attendance isn't necessarily taken every day now. It is and it's not. So as you look at the slide, there's two different states of affairs. There's in-person learning and there's distance learning. Both of those are basically tracked differently. If you're in-person learning, which means you're physically sitting in the seat, you're basically getting whatever your bell schedule is, and you have your instructional minutes just like a normal year. That's easy to do attendance for. It's no different than we would normally do. Anybody who's logged in is not physically in the class. They are distance learning. So whether you're completely online every day or whether you come every other day, the day that you're off campus and everybody who's online is distance learning, and they're not measured by minutes. They're measured by the time value of the assignments that the teachers give. And there are a lot of requirements on tracking those time values, with the purpose being that if a student doesn't do something during a week, you have a tiered engagement program that's going to then go track those students down and help get them re-engaged. So that was the purpose behind it, and this is what it ends up looking like when a teacher has to do it. So you'll see the attendance codes over there on the side. These are absent and blank as normal. The 3s and the 5s, and there's a few others that I didn't even include on here, are new for the year that teachers need to use, and this is what they put into their attendance every day. And so over on the right-hand side, you can see what a teacher's screen would look like. You can see that this particular class has 1 B student, 1 online student, and 3 A students. Now, there's more students. I just took a clip of one little section of it. But you can see over on the far side, 5s, A's, 3s, that corresponds to those codes. So on 11-2, I can see that my A students, all of them got 5s. That means they all showed up in person. They were all sitting in their desk that day. The 2 blanks up above, for my online and my B student, a blank means they completed the synchronous work, the work they did together as a class with the teacher online, and the asynchronous work, which means work they were given as homework. A teacher doesn't know that the day that that happens, because if I give homework, I don't know that by the end of the day. It's going to take me a few days before I get the homework back in and get it graded and then get it in and entered into the attendance codes. So you can see on the rest of the days how that would work. You get an A. If you're absent, a blank means you did it all. A 3 means that you were with me in Zoom, but you didn't do the homework. And so all those codes get entered into Aries each day. So you have to figure out every kid, were they sitting at a desk? Were they at home? If they were at home, did they log into Zoom? Did they come back after school and do their homework and get their homework so that I could put that code in? And so they get a week to go back and get this right for the students. So it's not necessarily right every day if you look at attendance, because they have time to come back in and fix it. Because if I give a student a 3 today because they were in my Zoom class, and I give them homework for 15 minutes, but I don't collect the homework until tomorrow and I don't get to grade it until the day after, I then, once I grade it, can go back in and change the attendance codes so that that kid gets credit for the work that he did at home. And you don't get to choose to do that, you have to do that.
So Dr. Weimer, this is state mandated?
This is our way of doing it. It's the state mandate that we have to meet that requires us to track this information.
Even though they're not paying us on daily attendance?
This is their trade-off. We're not paying you on daily attendance because you're going to do this, and if you don't do this, we take your daily attendance away. So then the teachers at the end of the week have to fill out the weekly engagement record, which is at the bottom. And therefore, each day, Monday, they're going to say, I did 48 minutes in class, breakout groups, review essay. I had no asynchronous assignments. Tuesday, I had 30 minutes of notes and discussion. And then I had 18 minutes where they did questions 1 to 3 on a message board on their own. So now I've put down what the class did. And by going to the Aries attendance codes, I can tell what every single student did that day by putting those 2 things together. And that's what the state requires us to be able to do. The other way to do it would be that every day you would have to write down what every single student in your class did every single day, all 150 of your kids. how much time they spend on every single assignment. That would be ridiculous, expectation for our teachers to be able to do. So this meets the requirement of being able to track how much time was synchronous, how much time was asynchronous, whether you were in person, whether you were distance learning, and whether you met your 48 minutes for each class during the day. So if I look at that B student, or no, let me look at it, if I look at that B student on 11-2, they have a blank. 11-2, that means they were there the whole 48 minutes and did that breakout group assignment. If I go and look at 11-2 for my O kid, online kid, they were having A, they were absent, so they didn't do the Tuesday assignment. If I go down to the second from the bottom A, on 11-3, they have a 3. So that means I can go to Tuesday, 11-3, and I can see that a 3 means they did the in-class work but didn't do the homework. So that means they did the notes in class on the Red Badge of Courage, but they didn't do their 18 minutes of homework. And teachers have to do that for their kids every day. And that meets the requirements for the weekly engagement logs and the requirements that we have to meet the ABA requirements. If we don't do that, we lose our ABA requirements. So that's in addition to the difficulties of the actual instructional model that we're talking about. This is some of the stuff that teachers have to do every day and are putting up with every day because of the state requirements.
Well, now I understand when my kids tell me some teachers take 15 minutes to take a roll. This is crazy. Are there any other districts that are doing something that's simpler that we might copy? Or?
Not that I'm aware of. Scott, you can speak to this too, but it's a nightmare everywhere.
Yeah.
We basically took a state template and modified it a little bit for ourselves.
So teachers, we feel your pain out there. You're on Zoom.
I just want to say thank you for doing this. Everyone has to do it. It has to be done on time and done well, and that takes a lot of your time. So thank you for your best efforts in doing this and doing it for 180 to 200 students every day. That's quite a bit. Thank you.
So the last piece to that is why we might not be able to tell you exactly on any given day how many kids are there for maybe a few days. So when I look at this, I could go try to find out how the 5s are. That tells me how many kids are sitting in a class that day. But a teacher doesn't necessarily have to have it up to date that particular day. So it might change. If I take a snapshot today, I might say there's 218 kids in class today. But if I take it 3 days and the student and the teachers have updated their attendance, it might be up to 240 or something like that. So it's a little bit hard for us to get the numbers out as well because of this type of situation.
So Dr. Weimer, with teachers, I mean, and we're talking, for the most part about general ed, regular ed students. So when we talk about students on IEPs or special ed students in general, what does that look like for them? I mean, because we're talking one piece, the academic participation data attendance component, but then where does the instructional or their minutes, their required minutes to meet their IEP goals, fall into this? Or is that a whole separate document?
It needs to be. That's one of where we're at right now. This tracks you as a class, and it kind of tells you generically you did breakout groups. The issue becomes if you're in, let's say, a learning skills class or something else, you might not have all 25 of your students in that class working on the same assignment. So that's a little bit generic for what needs to get reported on whether you're meeting your IEP goals, and you might get to the point where you need to track every student in your class on what they're doing. So that's one of the issues we're dealing with right now.
And as far as case studies go for teachers who have, what's the max that one of our teachers has as far as students?
Maximum for
on their case studies, our special ed teachers.
Well, they're generally around 30, not much over that.
No caseload should be over 28.
Yeah, 28.
Okay. Thank you, Christy. Okay.
And that would be it for me.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions for Dr. Weimer out there?
The next slide with intercession, I just want to go through each one of the symbols there very quickly. The no new instruction, that was very well received. The criticism there was that it was probably a little too long because the students that really needed the help stayed at home. The second, help students raise their grades. Again, It really helped the students that came to campus, and in my visits to the several school sites, just talking to teachers, they said, yeah, the students that are here really benefited and their grades, shot up. But unfortunately, those that stayed online, it wasn't the same. Acclimate students back to campus. Again, this was a great time. I think that was also very well received by our teachers that they had time. But again, some of the feedback was that it was probably a little too long for the 2-week period of time. Establishing healthy relationships. Again, just very redundant. For those students that came to campus, it was great because students got to see something other than a head. They had torso, they had legs, and they got to really interact. But again, those students that came to campus really benefited, and those that didn't really didn't have the same experience. And then training students on safety protocols. That was really quintessential to to making sure that our campuses stayed safe. So that again was very well received, along with the module that the students had to watch. The next slide with scheduling. Again, the student schedules for the most part were not interrupted unless they were in a class that needed to be split up because of the size of the class and the number of students. But overall, teachers were happy because they did get new sets of students. Students were happy because they kept their same students. We did have several school districts, Mendota and Lucia Mar, to name a couple, that had called, and I was able to Zoom with and look at our schedule because a lot of their teachers were upset, and parents were upset because they were going to break up the day and they were going to have to come up with that mixed schedule. So I think overall, at least for our district, the scheduling went very well. And then the next slide with broadcasting, as I mentioned, that the Channel 30 clip that came on about our reopening schools on November 2nd. Mendota saw it, reached out. I had an opportunity to go into several classrooms virtually with my phone. They wanted to see how the cameras were working and the microphones because they were very interested in purchasing that equipment. And then Lucia Mar with John Deno, some of you may know, is there. Also saw the clip online, so he called and I was able to meet with their superintendent and their team and some of our ed services team members to look at the equipment. Overall, the equipment that we got, the cameras, the mics, the earbuds, and Go Guardian, I think top of the line equipment, and the teachers have overwhelmingly said it's been good. They've really utilized that equipment very well. However, there are a lot of challenges with broadcasting lessons, and I hear this a lot from teachers, and in particular my wife. She says, gosh, I start teaching in class to the students, that are in front of me, and it's like I forget about the students that are online. So it's a challenge, and it's been a struggle for our teachers, but as Superintendent Peterson said earlier, our teachers are really, doing the best they can and making this, the best possible learning environment for our students.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to talk about the HR requirements and some of the changes that happened. We were able to keep our staff who were out for medical concerns. We were able to keep them on remote teaching. What they do is they are teaching from home using Zoom, and they Zoom into the classroom for the students who are in person, and they're being supervised by a substitute teacher. And then, of course, the other kids who are Zooming in are Zooming with that teacher. And then our other staff who had concerns, we worked with them to help them find available leaves that were appropriate and that they qualified for, if that's what they wanted to do. But most of them did return to the classroom to work with kids there.
Johnson?
Yep. For special education services, we continue to provide them via Zoom or in person, depending on the learning option that parents chose. Students with IEPs need the most support in school. We have some students attending daily, and we are looking to expand that opportunity for those who need it. We continue to encourage preventative measures that should take place, such as proper hygiene techniques, social distancing, use of masks, and staying home when not feeling well or after an exposure to COVID. Students received a lesson on those same topics on November 2nd when they returned to school. Next one. In conjunction with the Merced County Department of Public Health, MUHSD continues to use the decision tree and the information learned in the Johns Hopkins contact tracing course to determine when students and/or staff should stay home to monitor symptoms or to quarantine. Since June, nurses, health aides, and myself have made contact with over 400 individual students to evaluate symptoms, possible exposure, and make quarantine decisions. We have been very aggressive with the decisions to quarantine students based on symptoms and exposure. Health staff is to be commended for their work. All staff and families also receive a notification whenever there is a positive case reported on a campus. And in an effort to be transparent about cases within the district, I will be submitting positive case information to MCOE twice a week. This information will be used for the dashboard that will be created to share information about positive cases in schools. And finally, we have surveillance testing on school sites. We had that in October and November, and we'll continue surveillance testing by offering at-home testing kits for staff through SISC.
Thank you.
Just a little asterisk on reporting to MCOE. That may be quite an effort. So if we can find an easy way to make that happen, we will, but I don't want to promise that right now.
And I'm the last slide. Athletics. As of the writing of this slide, we were in the red tier and we were following those guidelines. Obviously, conditions have changed, but I think there was some effective lobbying going on in terms of moving to the purple tier, but still trying to work with the health department to understand that this is it's a co-curricular activity. It has to happen. And they are allowing us to continue with athletics and some other co-curricular activities. The biggest change that we set out a new list of guidelines for athletic directors and coaches to follow. The biggest change from a red to purple is the amount of distance that students need to have between them, and asking coaches and students to take their activities outside as much as possible. We're still in the waiting game with CIF. They are expected to release more information regarding the 3 athletic seasons that have been identified. We don't know what's going to happen. The governor has also postponed releasing any guidelines for youth sports. So we're in a waiting game. We don't have any idea what level equates to competition allowed. Hopefully we'll find out soon. In the meantime, I am still meeting regularly with the athletic directors, and should CIF say we're not going to get behind any inter-county competitions, then we would put together a county type of schedule for our schools and our athletes to be able to compete should we be allowed to. So that's where we are.
Just one comment on that, or in addition, the health department prefers that all activity is outside. However, the use of gyms and weight rooms and large, venues is okay, but you do have to be 10 feet apart. And, we expected tougher and stricter standards because we moved to the purple tier, and of course there should be tougher standards, but we appreciate that they recognized the need to basically treat our PE and athletics at the same level as our other courses.
Well, and we were
we had athletics going when we were in purple before we even moved to red, and we didn't have outbreaks or issues.
Yeah, sure,
And I
yeah.
think that our staff and students are doing a tremendous job of following the protocols, and it's the exercise that we all know is so important for everyone's mental health, and in particular kids.
Yep.
Christy, do you want to give an update? I mean, I know none of us are naive enough to think that there would not be any positive cases. My understanding is there are no cases that are traced back to any of our sites, but we have had, correct me if I'm wrong, we have had staff and students at all of our campuses test positive, and then maybe you can walk through what happened.
Yes, we have had staff and or students test positive at every site. When we hit the number of 3 at a site, then I immediately get in contact with the health department, and then they make a decision based on the information that I give them. There's lots of questioning that happens. We have information that we've gathered through contact tracing, and then they ask us questions, and then they determine whether or not we're going to be placed on what's called the outbreak list. And we do have one school that made the outbreak list yesterday, but again, it was 3 cases out of hundreds of people that are there.
Christy or Alan, can you guys explain exactly what being on an outbreak list means and what that consists of, so that we have a clear understanding as not only as trustee, but as a public? Please.
So an outbreak is defined as at least 3 probable or confirmed COVID-19 cases within a 14-day period in people who are epidemiologically linked in the setting. And by that, they just mean the site. So like Buhat Colony, that's where the epidemiology link. They're from different households and are not identified as close contacts of each other in any other case investigations. That's the exact definition that Rebecca sent me from the health department.
And then anyone who was in close contact with those folks are notified, and then what? Are they asked to quarantine?
They're asked to be on a 14-day quarantine, yes. And we are, the nurses for students, they call each of those individuals prior to clearing them to come back to school.
Do we ask them to get tested?
Not necessarily, no.
And just to clarify with the outbreaks, if they are in the same household, they count as one.
That is correct. The same household counts as one case. We've had a couple of cases that we know the source, and the source of the infection was outside of the district. We know that for a fact. So those don't count towards outbreaks either.
So Christy, to be clear, so if I contract COVID, I'm in period 1, and then I go to period 2, and then throughout my day, 7 classes later, and then day later, 2 days later, I come back positive. So you guys are going back to whatever cohort A that was, and reaching out to every single kid that was in that class at the time?
No, we don't reach out to every single person in the class. We do an extensive interview process and determine which students were within 6 feet of the positive case, or which staff members were within 6 feet of the positive case for a period of 15 minutes or more in a 24-hour period during the infectious period. So there's a lot of, we have to have a calendar out. We have to determine when symptoms started, and then we go back 2 days. It's a little complicated, but the nurses, HR, and myself are very well trained in how to do it.
So that's considered close contact, and that 15 minutes does not necessarily have to be consecutive or together.
Correct. It's 15 minutes in a cumulative period of 24 hours.
Can you give us the numbers at each site? Do you have those?
I can get them to you in an email.
Well, I have them in an email already. I'm just wondering if this is something we want to, let the public.
Unfortunately, we're not allowed to. We don't have enough numbers not to breach people's confidentiality. That's why we can't release them.
Okay, I don't understand that part, because as long as we don't disclose any names, that would be. But okay, if that's what the answer is.
I was on 2 campuses today, and I felt incredibly safe. Staff and students, everyone was very, very respectful. I didn't see a single person who wasn't wearing a mask. I was an unannounced visitor, popped my head into classrooms. There were hand sanitizing stations everywhere, markers for 6 feet. At Golden Valley, they have wipes on every desk, and students clean their area before they sit down and start learning, and they actually have blue tape outlining where the wipes go. Students were incredibly socially distanced. There wasn't anyone even within 6 feet of one another in a classroom. Anyway, I think the district is doing an excellent job. For those students who are on campus, I think it is a safe environment for staff and students.
Yeah, I'm getting feedback that some of the sites, especially during lunchtime, the kids are not necessarily social distancing, and also that we're not enforcing that. But for the most part, I would agree, I guess, that we are, most people are listening and all that, but it's maybe during lunchtime when that might be something we keep an eye on.
Yeah, Mr. Valadez, you're absolutely right on whoever's giving you feedback. That is a challenge at lunch.
The feedback's coming from parents and students and staff.
Yep, we would agree.
Christy, how many of those cases have been traced back to the site as the source? Oh,
You're on mute.
I believe 1.
Thank you.
So with social distancing, Mr. Peterson, being a concern at lunchtime, what do we have or what can we put into play to help with that besides telling kids to stay apart?
Well, short of having them stand on an X, I don't know. I mean, that, you don't want them spread out in teachers' classrooms or spread out in the open areas of campus right now. We have double digits, I think, in cafeteria serving carts, so kids don't have to wait in line. I don't think we're ever going to overcome the natural human part of being social. I mean, I got on our administrators yesterday regarding adults. And so if it's hard for adults, think how hard it is for students. So I think having staff out there, we've hired extra liaisons to help supervise, making sure administrators are out at lunch, obviously, and whatever other staff that's necessary. It's just a constant reminder.
So then, just to get back on some of the other topics with the, return to learn, some of the emails that we've gotten, I know, had to deal with the nutritional break. If we were bringing kids back full day, why we excluded the nutritional break and that wasn't offered any longer. What was the rationale behind that?
The issue was the length of time. If our premise is to wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance, there was no way to put out nutritional carts with nutritional items during that short span and still expect kids to socially distance and then have enough time to get back to class during that 10-minute time. I know that each individual campus worked with our nutrition department to try to address any of those items, and everyone kind of made a custom arrangement with our department. I'm not sure if all of them canceled it or some of them still kept them, but it depended a lot on the amount of time that was.
No, yeah, they went back to their original schedule. That's the answer. So some campuses have nutritional break and some don't. So.
but I think some that had it are not offering it now.
Correct.
Okay, not offering the time or not offering food on it?
Food,
Yeah.
Okay.
food. So I wonder, is it an option to have it waiting in their classrooms? It's delivered for a certain number of
That-
kids?
And with the health department guidelines, that's something we do not want to do.
Oh, okay.
We do not want to put kids in a classroom where they're eating and
Taking their
having their
mask
mask on.
Got it, okay.
So with those campuses that do versus those that don't, like we talk about the bright spots with the MTSS, but what are they doing to make it work for them that the other campuses that don't have it are making it work for them then?
Mhm.
I mean, is that something we can take a look at to make it work across the district then?
Are you talking about serving food
Or
during?
nutritional break?
Yes, we definitely need, we are, I'll say it now, we are working with the union. We will continue working with the union to modify the schedule. That will be something that needs to happen across the district. But there has to be enough time for students to go get their, morning break and then eat it before they go back to class.
No, and I understand that, but what I'm saying is some sites are making that work right now. What about the ones that aren't making it work right now? What can they do that the others are doing to make it work for them to still provide a nutritional snack right now?
Yeah, I'm not aware that they are serving food somewhere. I may be wrong.
They are at Livingston.
Okay.
But again, part of the difficulty was we're bringing back kids that haven't really been on a campus in 8 months. And we're bringing, the majority of the kids that we're bringing back were only on the campus probably a total of 4 to 5 months. Freshmen who've never been there. So we're trying to get them back in the groove, and now they're accustomed to their schedules. Mr. Jolly represented to me that he was able to work with Aaron Cassie, Director of Nutrition, to establish a plan to make that happen. So they're serving there, and I think that's something we can look at. I know BUHAC has a longer time, but I'm not sure if they're serving or not during nutritional break.
So I'm just thinking in terms of us having, say, Mr. Jolly said 190 kids on a campus on any given day. Well, yeah, it allows for that.
Mm-hmm.
Same at the other campuses, when you have 25% or less of your kids on campus, well, it allows for that to happen. Now, there are other logisticals that need to be taken care of to make that work, but, I'm sure on any given regular year, when you have 2,000 kids on campus, it's working. Okay, so now we're talking, we have 200 to 300 kids on campus. It just makes sense to me that it could work,
Yeah.
Again,
The problem is you don't have all of those, you gotta stay socially distant.
Right.
So we're only gonna get through possibly a certain amount, or, there's all kinds of reasons. Each one is so unique, but I certainly can ask that.
Well, and I think, Alan, you said it's the number of carts we have on every campus exceeds 10. It seems like if we have them available for lunch, we ought to be able to make them all available.
We're not going to be able to answer this question tonight. We can have Aaron.
And I'm just thinking in terms of, this discussion right now, but, after tonight, it might be a moot point anyway, because, the possible, at the schedule and everything else, so.
I have to agree with Richard on that. We need to stay on it and see if we can make a change, because some of these students, their recent going back to school may have been for that specific reason too, where, to help them with that at least. On the public comment stuff, what happened earlier? When we were gonna talk?
Yeah, we're just on the public comments, all of them have to pertain to 11.04, which is the topic we're on now. So as soon as we're done with our discussion, we will go to the public comment period, okay?
All right, I was thinking we'd usually do that before, but okay, so I have more comments, questions. So at this time, how is our attendance at each site? What is the attendance, the actual students going to in-person learning?
You mean the split? between in-person and distance?
No, I'm talking about just in-person, period. They're going to school, period. They're attending classes at a site.
You mean actually showing kids that said they want to come back in person, and how many of those are actually showing up?
Correct. And some of them probably
I can
drop.
only guess at that number. Mr. Weimer, jump in here if you like. I would say the number that are signed up to come are in the low 50s. And I would say that actual number that are coming every day is probably closer to 40.
You're talking about percent-wise?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to make a comment for people that are watching on YouTube and online. And Aaron, you brought this up earlier, just so everyone understands that some of you guys have masks because you are in person at the district office. And I don't, and others that may come up don't, because I'm at my personal office. So that's the reason, just in case anybody's wondering why that's happening. Because there was a comment earlier that they couldn't hear some of the people with masks on. So yeah, attendance. So for example, Mr. Jolly, he was saying the numbers. The way I looked at it, there's only 15% of the students going to in-person learning at Livingston High School, because he was counting both distance learning and in-person learning. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand that?
No, you misunderstood that. It's 15% put together. So 15% on the A schedule, 15% on the B schedule.
He said 33%, but yeah.
Yeah, a little higher than that,
Yeah. No, I'm the one that didn't understand it right, because the number he gave, I think it was let's say 200 students out of 1,200, it's about 16%. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, on a given day.
All right, so that's Livingston. What about the other ones?
I just stated that. I think it's around 40% that come and a little over 50 that are signed up for in-person. And that's just a guess from what I have heard from principals.
Okay. Well, I guess what I would like to get a number of actual students that are going to on-site, whether they're on the A or B schedule, it doesn't matter, and versus who's staying home, and how that dropped. Did it drop lately, or after we were downloaded to purple, to the purple level?
Yes, it has dropped lately and it's going to drop more.
So what are we going to do? Let's say right now, I hear there's 4, 5, maybe 6 people per class.
Depending on the class and the school, that could be correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what if there's 4, 5, 6 people per class per class? Are we thinking about doing anything else if that continues to drop? Let's say there's 2 people per class. Are we going to continue doing what we're doing?
We're going to continue doing what we're doing until we're directed otherwise, yes.
Directed by who?
Directed by you as the board or county public health.
Okay. All right. That's one of the things I wrote down. So attendance, we talked a little bit about reducing the class time. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, we have a lot of emails coming in and text messages and so on, but from staff, students. Well, not a lot from students, but more staff and parents, about the time, the length of the class time. Can you talk about that, please?
Okay, I just stated it. We are working with the union to work through those issues. I'm not sure what else you want me to say. That is a process and it takes time. There are legal issues on our side that we need to work through. I expect that to, happen in the next week or two.
Okay, well, that's what I was asking you to say, but also what are we looking at cutting the time down from a,
We may be, yes.
okay? That's, I was kind of thinking, can we say like we're looking at cutting it down from 8 a.m. to 2:30, 1:30, 1, 12? What are we looking at? Because that's, that's something that I think every.
We're in the middle of negotiating that, so I'm not going to give you a time, but yes, we are looking at a reduction in the minutes per period.
Okay, so main thing is we're talking to the union in order to get something done.
That's correct.
Thank you. The last thing is regarding the safety and protocols. I know that we talked about it a little bit earlier, but Aaron, you mentioned that you did visit a site or a couple sites unannounced. I did try to do that also, but they turned me away, so I couldn't do it. And I wanted to go during the lunchtime or whatever. They said I couldn't do it. So.
Just for clarification, Mrs. Ham followed the protocol.
What's the protocol?
If that's what you're referring to.
Well, what's the protocol?
For you to contact the district office so we can contact the principal.
All right. So, but that would defeat the purpose of going there unannounced. I mean, if you're gonna.
I can tell you right now, Mrs. Ham gave me about 1 minute to do that. So that's all it takes.
Okay.
Nobody cares about whether a trustee walks onto a campus unannounced. It's just that you as a group, this board has a protocol on how to handle that. So our principals communicate that protocol to board members that don't follow it.
Got it. Okay. All right. So hopefully when that happens is they're following all protocols and not choosing which protocols to follow. But either way, I did send an email to Leslie so that I do want to visit all the sites. And
great. We'll set up a time.
But I would, I don't, if we're going to go see what's really happening, I don't think they should be notified. Hey, we got a board member coming. So that's.
No problem. You text me and you can be in the parking lot.
Got it. Okay. That's pretty clear. Thank you. So, but regarding safety protocols, I think we should do as much as we can. The feedback, again, is that maybe some of the staff are being lenient about social distancing, maybe face masks and so on. And, they walk past students or whatever and nothing's being done. So my opinion of this is just, we got to be as careful as possible. And, our answer is always, we're following Merced County Health Department guidelines. I think we should do better than that. We deserve, our students, staff deserve that we do better than just the normal Merced County Health Department guidelines. Because a lot of the times when we say that, we don't even know what the guidelines are. But, so that's what I wanted to say about those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jojo. How's transportation going in the midst of all this?
Transportation there's very low ridership, student ridership. But the good news to that is that they only have to take one route, one loop to the bus stops. So they're able to handle the population that we have that's riding the buses.
And how's the food service handling all this?
Again, very quickly, because they worked together from the beginning, they were able to set up carts in strategic points throughout the campus. And from day one, they were feeding the kids within 10 to 12 minutes, and the kids had 18 minutes to socialize.
And then what are we doing as far as those kids, if you're on an A schedule, and they're on a B day, whatever that may be? Do they have access to the meals too, or are we doing the once a week thing? Or
Yeah, we're doing the once a week. Right now, it's designated as Wednesday.
Okay.
But she was going to see how that worked, and if it didn't, she's able to adjust it and move it to Mondays, Fridays, whatever works the best.
Okay. And then as far as like these classes, our CT classes, I know that that's part of our vision for all kids. How are CT classes doing amidst all this also? I mean, you talked about whether it's your FFA classes, your woodshop classes, your diesel mechanics, whatever that may be. I mean, are they seeing a drop in kids also? And then how are we bringing kids on board to kind of work through some of that stuff? Because that's all direct hands-on learning.
They're struggling, and it's just that the numbers aren't there, and we have a lot of students that are staying home, and then we also have restrictions with the size of the shops and areas that students are in. So yeah, our CTE programs are struggling, and we cannot wait until we get back, on a quote unquote normal schedule, because you're right, that is the vision of our district. And I think sometimes we lose sight that, we were just in just catching our rhythm with student-centered learning and, hands-on learning and providing work-based learning experiences for students. And we shifted to now teacher-focused lessons. So yeah, we're struggling. And like I said, teachers are doing the best they can, but it's a real struggle.
Those folks are happier than probably anyone to have, live students in their classroom, even if it's only a handful.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
By the way, when I was there earlier, I was with my son visiting the counselor. But anyways, what are we doing for water for the students? I know that some of the water taps are tapped off. So how do they get water?
There are numerous water filling stations throughout the campuses. I believe we've ordered another 10 stations, 6%, to be hooked up and placed out on the campuses. But there are water filling stations right now.
Okay. Is there enough for the students that are attending right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other question on that is how do they work? Well, let's say I have a water bottle and I put it on my mouth. Are they going to end up putting, I use my water bottle, then Richard comes and puts his, is it touching a surface that is gonna, maybe probably pass the virus if somebody has it or something else?
No, the models that we have are predominantly touchless.
Well, yeah, you don't have to touch a button to put it, but what about where the water's coming out of? Well, can I accidentally put my water bottle at the tap and then somebody else do that as well?
I don't believe so, but I'll check on that.
I would suggest that anyone who's super concerned about that should not use those water systems. They should bring their own water.
Yeah, I suggest that too.
I feel like the district can do the very best it can do, but at some point it's up to every individual to be responsible for their own safety. And if they're not comfortable, then they probably shouldn't be on campus, or they should choose not to get water, or they should choose not to eat from the cafeteria, whatever it is that, is alarming. I think that our campuses are working really hard, have thought through a lot of things, but there are certain things as the water you just pointed out, Julio, I get it, but I'm not sure, short of having someone there monitoring it all day long, I don't know how we could say there's no risk of getting COVID at this water station.
Right. I mean, we can just tell them don't fill your water bottles here, or just don't do it, or maybe provide disposable cups where they could just throw it away and not they're not bringing a bottle that they've already put on their mouth and so on. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, if they're very, very concerned, those people should maybe not do that, but sometimes kids are in a hurry and they're gonna do what they gotta do to get a drink, or especially if they're participating in sports.
What is the district's protocol on students bringing their own water bottles into the classroom and then being allowed to drink them in the classroom?
I believe that's always been allowed.
Okay, because I've gotten emails and calls about teachers not allowing kids to drink their waters, and because they're taking their mask off, and then they're drinking their water, and then possible, whatever.
Yeah. I think those kinds of questions are at least better first addressed to the principal of the school.
Okay. Right.
Costa, what are we doing? You talked about every student who has a D or an S will get a phone call home. I know I talked to Mr. Swartwood a little bit about this today. They're already doing that at Golden Valley and encouraging as many of those students to come back as possible. But, you know, as we saw the numbers very clearly in black and white, our student engagement is very, very low. You know, I don't know, is there some other initiative or some other thought for how we can help those students?
I think it was you or someone highlighted it here just recently. You know, our parents and our guardians have to take an active role. You know, I've never seen so many teachers and administrators just get after it every day, trying to connect with students. And you know, it's you know, parents have to meet us halfway, and that's really and guardians. That's really one of the ways that we can address this. So phone calls home, sending letters home, parents square home, to notify parents that, hey, your child is not doing well in class. I mean, if parents that are listening out there or any other or community organizations, I mean, we really need to have parents and guardians meet us halfway on this. You know, I wholeheartedly, and my wife being a teacher, doing everything humanly possible to get students to turn on the camera, you know, to attend class, and it's going to take a community effort to address that.
And what about social emotional issues? Since, again, our most vulnerable populations, the students that we were most hopeful would be returning to campus to get positive adult reinforcement, mostly have not returned. And so we weren't reaching students before. Is there anything new that's being done to reach those students?
Christy's on the call. I don't know of anything different that we're doing. Perhaps Christy can speak to some of the services that our students are receiving now.
Yeah, I will tell you that administrators are doing everything humanly possible. I know Mr. Swartwood met with all the freshmen non-performing parents, and he got about 30 of them to come back. But, you know, I'm just going to guess, but obviously the number was much higher, like upwards of 200. So, you know, he wouldn't have got those 30 if he didn't make the effort. And I think that's going on across the district.
And I think a lot of the concerns that we're also hearing is, you know, as far as engagement goes, is students who, you know, they can't last, and from parents, obviously, that's a long day, 7 hours behind a screen. You know, and I know academic-wise, we're saying behind our Chromebook, and like, you know, Trustee Ham mentioned earlier, you know, well, screen time, I mean, let's specify what screen time is. Is it screen time, is it academic screen time, or is it screen time behind going to do something else, you know, whether you're behind your iPhone texting, I mean, that's screen time. Whether you're watching YouTube on some of it, that's screen time. So is it because it's academic based? And I get it, it's a long day. It is a long day for our kids to sit behind the screen for 7 hours, and we're expecting them to check in at the start of class, and then we say, okay, you 15 minutes, 20 minutes in, and you got it, you're on your own go. I get it, you know, but the majority of our population is showing they're not doing it. They're checking in, closing their screen out, they're going black, and we're moving on to something else, and I'll set my timer, and I'll log in on my second period class at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, having 3 children right now in the system, 2 freshmen and 1 senior, and, you know, walking through classrooms, it's a real struggle for teachers to say, okay, turn off the camera, you know, give them an assignment. A lot of our teachers are, you know, teaching bell to bell. And, you know, it's a constant reminder to say, hey, it's okay to, you know, to call, you know, give it a timeout, you know, let the mind rest a little bit. And I understand why teachers would do that, because they're trying to do what they can to avoid these learning loss gaps, you know, with our students. So it's a you know, inner turmoil, you know, with the teacher to not go through content and, you know, not do their job. That's just not in their nature. So it's a, you know, it's an inner struggle, you know, to say, all right, turn off your camera. I mean, teachers want to do the best they can. And, you know, this is the first time they've also been in public. You know, they're broadcast so everyone can hear them. I mean, they're, you know, accustomed to being in their classroom. They close the door, they get after it, they do what they do. Now they're on stage every day, and it's hard to say, turn off that camera. So it's a big struggle.
And I think at some point, parents are becoming disengaged also, because they're seeing the frustration on their students and their kids saying, I can't do this. You know, and, you know, for a parent to sit there and monitor that, you know, if you're a single working parent or 2 working parents, whatever that may be, whatever the dynamic is, to sit there and having to oversee your child that's at home by themselves, you know, that's one child, but what if you got a family of 3 or 4? You know, I see the challenges. You know, so I think we've got to do something to try to address that issue also, you know, and I know Mr. Peterson's going to be meeting with the union on that, so we can see about possibly reducing the schedule for days.
Well, I think we're seeing a lot of parents who don't know what to do. None of us have been through this before, right? But, you know, especially with older kids, they make a lot of their own decisions, and I think you see a lot of parents recognizing the stress that their children have and just kind of saying, I don't know what to do. I give up, right? Or do whatever you need to do. I don't know. But I you know, we have heard from some parents, a handful of teachers, and a couple students that, you know, they don't like the schedule. We've also heard from students that they're thrilled to have the extra time to learn, and from teachers that are, you know, thank goodness I now can teach the full period, and there's going to be less of this learning loss, right? And there are certainly students and teachers that really want that. I think we lowered our expectations by having a shortened schedule, and then students got accustomed to it and said, yeah, I mean, would you rather enter day at 12:30 or 3? That's a no-brainer for kids, right? I mean, any kid would rather be done earlier. But what's really going on, and why did kids who started off in person decide to switch to distance learning? Sure, some of it's going to be purple. I think a lot of it's just convenience. It's not convenient to go to school anymore, and school has become it's not a priority anymore. People got jobs, they're taking care of their siblings because it's a necessity. They'd rather sleep. It's easier to stay in bed. It's really not any different to be in person than to be a distance learner. And I know, Costa, you said your wife sometimes forgets the distance learners, and then I've heard from kids that are present, they feel like they're ignored because the teacher is teaching to the distance learner. I mean, I think our teachers are working phenomenally hard. Alan, you said this is the hardest year that anyone's ever been through, and we've certainly heard from teachers that have been here for 30 years, 2 years, 2 months, you know, 6 years, whatever it is, the gamut. This is hard, but most people are giving it their very best effort and working within the challenges. And so, you know, I think, Tiffany, you asked earlier about what kind of training are we giving our teachers to work on engagement, and that's, you know, how do we get our kids back engaged, because they are of a mindset, a lot of our kids, the majority of our kids, that education is just, it's not necessary right now, right? And that is our problem.
So whether it's you're in school till 3 o'clock or you're in school till 12:30 or whatever, we have to engage our kids. I had really been pushing for what I think has been now dubbed a homeroom period. And my idea behind it, because I've seen it work at other campuses, is that it's a social emotional check-in. It has nothing to do with school and academics. It's how's your day? You know, what's going on in your house? What's your struggle? What's making you happy? It's, you know, light, something where teachers can converse with kids and kids have a safe space to share. And then if we have more needs, they can get referred to counseling and things like that. But I know that's not how teachers are perceiving it. I wish maybe those of you who are listening might think about it a little bit differently, but a way to just connect with our kids that's not so stressful, it's not academic related.
Sorry. That's a good point. I think because obviously in education, especially our district has made a concerted effort on pushing academics and high achieving for everybody. That's how we push on our teachers. Achieve, 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 teach, teach, teach. And now this hits us and they're still in that mode. Well, I still have a job to do. And now we're kind of saying, pump the brakes, guys, pump the brakes. It's okay. If we don't meet whatever benchmarks, if we don't meet the state assessments, the data, whatever those goals are, you know what? It's okay, because it's going to happen across the board to everybody, not just Mercer Union High School District, you know? And the focus shouldn't just be, like you're saying, Trustee Hannah, on just teach. You know what? Bring in other things that we can do, especially for those kids who are there. I mean, the kids at home could do a project at home and bring it by on any given day, just drop it off or showcase it on Zoom to the teacher that they completed such a project, PBL. I mean, we push that across the board. That can still happen at home. It can happen in the classroom. You know, it doesn't always have to be this heavy push on standard after standard after standard. You know, now is the time to kind of loosen up and, you know, bring some of those old techniques back and projects in place that, you know, our kids will kind of be back engaged again. So, I mean, and I'm hoping we're all on the same page on this, because I think it's a challenge for everybody right now. And we're trying to do it best. So.
All uncharted territory.
Yes.
Well, I agree with Aaron on the teachers are doing the best they can and a great job on what they can do right now with the situation that we're in. But I do think, like I mentioned earlier, like for example, with my son, I mean, there's these longer periods, and that's why I was asking earlier if we're looking into making the period shorter and you know, whatever, adjust later or whatever, but making it shorter, because for, you know, what is the purpose of us having the student on for a long period of time for the class if they're only there for checking in and then they leave themselves on there, but they go do something else like play video games or whatever, take a nap or whatever. I mean, yes, some of them are lazy because they're doing that because they're lazy. Some of them have other reasons, but you know, that's still is, what is the purpose of, is there a purpose, Alan, for us having them on for that long of a period? What is the purpose of that?
I'm sorry, did you ask a question?
Yeah, he asked what's the purpose behind keeping kids until the 3 o'clock-ish time around the campuses.
When we came back in person, we went back to regular schedules. And then we have to negotiate the effects of that, and we're still in that process. It's taken time.
Yeah, for the student though, I mean, maybe someone else can answer that, but for the student, what, or maybe it's for the school itself. I mean, we are able to go back to a shorter period if we can, right? There's not a reason that we need to stay on 8 to 3 or whatever the time is, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And then, you know, I mean, I don't know who mentioned it, but you know, we say that some of the kids are not attending school because, you know, maybe they know that it's why I don't have to, I can stay home, or they're, you know, want to be a little bit lazy with it. But I think some of the parents don't want to allow them to come back because they don't feel it's safe, although we're trying to do our best, but in most places, but maybe they don't want their kids to go back because they don't feel safe. Not that we're not doing our best or this or that, but it's just in their minds, that's what they feel. The world is not safe, let's say. So anyways, just wanted to mention that. But I do, like I said, anyways, we all have opinions, and that's just what I think.
Thank you, Julio. All right, you guys, so, public out there with comment period. Mrs. Rohrbach will now, read off the comments that were submitted. Like, as I mentioned earlier, all 12 comments were pertaining to the return, to learn, plan. And so, Mrs. Rohrbach, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Actually, Sam and I are going to take turns,
Okay.
and I will have my phone set for the 3-minute part. Can someone else keep track of the 20 minutes, please? Yep. Okay, so the first comment was submitted by Aiden Mondo. Aiden says, I'm submitting a public comment tonight asking our school board to please consider going back to the 35-minute class schedule instead of this 50-minute schedule. As an online student, I cannot explain how draining it is that I have to sit at my laptop for 7 hours a day, 7 periods a day. As you hear this tonight, I want to remind you that this schedule does not affect you. It affects us students who have to endure this issue. It's disturbing that a district will make decisions for students without student or teacher input.
Next comment is from Kenneth Rhodes. He says that it's been a joy to work with students, both in person and virtually during the last 3 weeks. Although the logistics of the intersession were challenging at times, the energy of the students back on campus and the dynamics of in-person discussions could not be muted by face masks or social distancing. Thank you, MUHSD board, for lobbying for students to have a choice to be back on campus. As you have lobbied on behalf of the entire student population, I hope that you will continue to advocate for the student athletes of MUHSD. In response to the COVID pandemic, the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee within the NFHS has stated that it believes it is essential to the physical and mental well-being of high school students across the nation to return to physical activity and athletic competition. Our MUHSD teams have been able to condition regularly in preparation for the prospect of 2021 competition. We, as coaches and athletes, recognize that CIF competition will be contingent upon COVID numbers throughout various sections and regions within the state. In the meantime, the value of being able to work out together cannot be overstated. Aside from the obvious physical benefits from a regular conditioning program, I have observed significant shifts in the mental well-being of our student athletes since they have been able to condition together. In the weeks and months to come, I urge the MUHSD board to continue to advocate for our student athletes. For those that choose to do team sports in the time of COVID, benefits of regular conditioning, as well as the possibilities of intra-squad, district, and/or county competition are monumental. Although the risk level of COVID transmission varies from sport to sport, the coaches from each sport, in consultation with our athletic directors, can learn what has worked and what to avoid from the dozens of other states that complete all sports seasons. California's patience in moving competitive seasons back to December was a wise move, and we look forward to resuming competitive seasons in any safe capacity possible with your support.
The next comment is from Robert Shaljean. President Lopez, members of the board, Superintendent Peterson, and Cabinet. My name is Robert Shaljean, and I am both a teacher at Buhat Colony High School and a parent of a freshman there. I am writing to you today to express my concern with the current bell schedule. As a teacher, I am seeing more students burn out earlier in the school day by being required to be online for 48-minute classes, 7 periods a day. Students later in the day are less engaged now, than when they were on the distance learning schedule. I have had students report to me that they are suffering from headaches, eye strain, and struggling to stay focused online for that length of time. Without office hours, I am unable to provide one-on-one assistance for students the way that I could when we were on the distance learning schedule. Without office hours, I do not have time in my day for students to retake tests, which negatively affects their grades. I teach mathematics, which is a subject that students tend to need more support in. Office hours gave me that time where I could provide that support. What if a student is absent? How do I get the help? How do they get the help they need to catch up? I have students in office hours most days, either getting help, making up tests, retaking tests, etc. Myself, as well as many of my students, found this time invaluable. I would encourage you to consider adopting a new schedule that allows for this flexible time for students, and the time being flexible is key. That way, those students that do not need help on a particular day are able to reduce their screen time. This is essential for many of our students' health. As parents, I know this is not healthy for my son. He is in class staring at a computer screen for more than 5 hours, 5.5 hours per day. This is not comparable to watching TV either, as he must be focused and engaged so that he is learning. This makes this a more taxing exercise than passively being on a screen. Then he still has homework to do, homework to complete following that, which means additional screen time as everything is digital currently. As a distance learning student, he does not have a one-on-one access to any of his teachers if he needs more personalized help. Adopting a schedule with shorter class periods and office hours solves many of these issues and concerns. I again ask you to consider this.
Next comment is from Katie Young. Esteemed board members, I have 2 sons currently at Merced High School. I have heard that you are pushing for a full reopening in the spring without cohorts, without a distance learning option, and without agreeing to safety precautions your teachers are trying to negotiate. I have also heard that you are not considering changing schedules or reducing screen time for students in the current cohort mode. You claim to be making decisions in the best interest of students and teachers, and frankly, I don't believe that. I know how difficult the situation is, as I am a teacher myself at another local school. Please put your politics aside. Negotiate a safe and healthy learning environment with your teachers and their union reps. I will be sending another email with more personal details to Mr. Peterson, board members, and the principal of my son's school.
The next comment is from Diane Taylor. Dear Superintendent Peterson and the school board, I have concerns about the 8 to 3 Zoom schedule that has been in place for distance learning students since November 2nd. With this new schedule, there is only a 30-minute break, a 30-minute lunch break, and 1 10-minute break all day. The previous Zoom schedule that was from 8 to 12:30 was manageable and should continue for distance learning students. My son and daughter did well with that schedule. DL students also shouldn't be required to attend a 5th period class unless they are failing a class. I understand that shorter lunch is needed to reduce unstructured social time for in-person students, but treating DL students like in-person students is not necessary. This schedule is not sustainable, and they aren't learning anything more than being on Zoom all day. After Zoom classes are done at 3 o'clock, then we have another 2 to 3 hours of work to complete because work is not typically posted until the end of the class period. It is also difficult to be on Zoom and switch over to a Google Doc without getting disconnected from Zoom, which appears to be a Chromebook issue. Being on screen from 8 to 9 is detrimental to student motivation and health. I sincerely hope that the schedule will be changed after Thanksgiving break. Thank you for considering the needs of all students as you continue to refine the school schedule.
Next comment is from Brianna Pivaroto. Good evening. There are 2 areas of concern I would like to address. Safety. Some students have opted to come back to our campuses for our in-person hybrid instruction. Guidance APs and counseling office staff across the district worked tirelessly on a very short notice to ensure that safety guidelines were followed and that in-person classes were capped at appropriate numbers based on social distancing guidelines. We have seen our in-person numbers decline as cases of coronavirus have surged in our community. And Mr. Peterson has stated that we may invite some students to attend in person every day as space allows. It concerns me that we are viewing maximum capacity in our classrooms as the ideal we should strive for. Literally, maximum capacity is the least safe we are allowed to be in terms of how many people can be in a given room. Why are we striving to maintain the least safe conditions that are allowed? I have heard our MUHSD leadership and school board members state many times that bare minimum is not good enough when it comes to instruction and instructional minutes provided to our students. So why are we so eager to provide them with the bare minimum in safety standards? Schedules. With the return of our students to our campuses, we have reverted to our normal bell schedules. However, this is anything but a normal school year. Mr. Peterson stated in his email on Monday that students who are on full distance learning may soon outnumber those who are on the hybrid model. On any school day, around 75% of our students are receiving their instruction online remotely, including distance learning only and hybrid students on their DL days. The remaining 25% or so who are on campus are likely still working all day on their computers since teachers are having to broadcast their lessons to online students while teaching students in person. Students are spending 7 hours in front of a screen per day with one brief nutrition break and a 30-minute lunch break. Are our current bell schedules working for our students? Has MUHSD surveyed students and parents or guardians to ask what they think about them? We are a high school district. Our students are getting close to adulthood, and many are taking on additional responsibilities in these unprecedented times. They are working part-time jobs, taking college courses, caring for elderly or injured family members, and supervising younger siblings. We have the opportunity to work with our students and find a schedule that provides them with appropriate instructional time and the flexibility to take care of their other needs without inordinate amount of forced daily screen time. If we choose to maintain the status quo, it may be at their expense.
Okay, the next comment is from Christy. Does anyone know how to say the last name? Okay. I'm sorry for butchering your last name. I apologize, Christy. Good morning. I am the parent of a freshman at UHAP High School, and I am very concerned about the amount of hours my son is spending on Zoom for classes. Even when he goes to school 2 or 3 times a week, he's expected to be on Zoom. At the end of the day, it leaves him agitated and anxious about being in front of a screen all day. He seemed to have gotten a lot more accomplished when his classes were shorter and he ended at 12:30. He has more time to do his homework before he was expected to be on campus for practices. If there is any way possible to go back to the shorter schedule, I feel it would greatly benefit the mental health of many students, not only my own.
Next comment is from Roger Johnson. I received the following from a student, and this is why we need office hours so that students like this can get support. I disguised his name, obviously. Hey, Mr. Johnson, this is blank from 5th period. I hurt my ankle and I was in the hospital. On top of that, my Wi-Fi hasn't been working through Zoom and I have no clue how to do what we are doing in class. Is there any way you can help me out tomorrow? I don't know how to do the assignment. I always send you chats during class about how my Zoom always stays connecting. If not, I understand. I unfortunately cannot submit my assignment on time. Thank you, sir. I have stated before that we have effectively punished the students who choose to stay home 100% of the time. I was acknowledged by 3 board members from my last email. We gave them a choice. Were the students or parents ever aware that office hours would not exist? If all students were at school, he may be able to come to my room at lunch or before school, and the problem would be solved in 5 to 10 minutes with a one-on-one session. With his predicament and poor Wi-Fi, we often have to communicate through chat on the Zoom, which takes much longer. There has been discussion about a homeroom. This won't help this student. I would have students from multiple grade levels, math levels, and different science classes. Students have been put in a situation where flexibility for them to seek help is paramount. I'm not going to say all students will take advantage of office hours because they won't, but the student will and others will also. As I see it, the students who choose to stay home now have less support, and that is the majority of our students right now. The only people who know what it is to teach under these circumstances are the ones who are doing it right now. Not one administrator in this district has taught under these circumstances. By the way, last spring is not a fair comparison. It is not meant to be an insult to any recipient on this email, meant to belittle anyone else, or meant to belittle anyone else. I'm a teacher and I don't know how to do the job any of you do either. It is what it is. I do know that this is a time where traditional thought has to sometimes be left aside because these times are not traditional. I also know that there is strong reluctance to put office hours back into the schedule. This is the most difficult year of teaching I've encountered in 26 years. This is far from an ideal educational setting. We can make decisions to make it better. As far as I am concerned, the schedule we are currently on has made it more difficult. I'm losing the students at home. The increase in screen time and lack of office hours is part of it. This is my opinion and I share it with other teachers. BCHS is now on the county list for outbreaks, and everyone knows this may lead to an increase of students who move to 100% distance learning. This has been the shift already in the numbers. The number of students in need of an office hour will now increase. I want each of you to understand that my feelings are shared by members of my own department as well as teachers who work in other disciplines. I'm not basing my opinion on my own thoughts alone. This is only the second time I have ever sent an email like this to a group of recipients like this. This was not done in haste or with the lack of long consideration of our current situation.
Okay, the next comment is from Karen Cavarado. Karen says, I have recently heard that MUHSD may be pushing for full reopening in the spring without cohorts, without a distance learning option, and without agreeing to safety precautions the teachers are trying to negotiate. Even under the best of circumstances in this pandemic, this proposed plan defies any sense of logic and concern about the safety of all people that this plan would negatively affect students, staff members, and the families of both groups. Clearly, we are already speeding towards the worst health and safety conditions that we will face in this COVID pandemic. Any people who actually follow the science by reading current scientific studies and following reputable statistical predictions know that we are quickly surpassing the highest numbers ever for COVID victims and deaths from COVID. Research on COVID also shows that the level of community spread is a critical representation of what happens in school settings and reflects the community's level of concern for safety and value of human life in that setting. What does our local high school administration and governing board communicate to their stakeholders about the value of human life when a rigidly conceived, inflexible return to school reopening plan in the spring shows no respect for specific needs of students, concerns of parents and staff members, and no plan to protect the health and safety of students, staff, and their families? As a retired educator with almost 40 years of dedicated service to our community, it makes me incredibly sad and angry to see apparently callous disregard for the basic safety and human life of students and staff members, along with their families, who risk being the innocent victims in these incredibly dangerous and ill-conceived reopening plans. My 3 adult children followed me into the field of education, and I have collectively devoted 37 years of their life to helping students with disabilities reach their potential. It has been heartbreaking to hear that their disappointment and distress over being devalued as simply the providers of service, with the decision makers demonstrating little concern for the health and safety of any of the participants in the process. I am expressing my significant concern regarding the MUHSD spring plan's for reopening without reasonable, logical flexibility for students, parents, staff needs, and with little apparent regard for student, staff, and family safety. For the sake of your stakeholders, please be assured that the basic human right to health and safety while attending school and while being employed in the school setting is very important to us. My timer is going off. Who are family members of your students and staff, interested community members, and lifelong educators.
All right, next comment is from Mikey D. Ansejo. The board must address the negative effects, of the hours the high school students are spending online. We have chosen to keep our child home due to the pre-existing medical issues of our family members. And to be honest, she has been doing well with DL. My concern is that since the hours have increased, she is experiencing back and vision issues. The quality of her education has not increased with increased screen time. She's a good student and is very responsible, but how long can anyone be expected to sit and stare? The original schedule was an intense 30 minutes of intro, instruction, and review with office hours for extra help. This setup was far more productive. As it appears with our county numbers, we will be DL for the majority of the school year. I encourage you to try and sit from 8 to 3 with a 30-minute break the entire day and notice the effects it has on your body after a week. Not a good feeling. Please make changes.
The next comment is from John Petty. Dear Superintendent Peterson and MUHSD school board members. My name is John Petty, and I am an MUHSD grown. I am currently a teacher at El Capitan High School in the AVID program, a wrestling coach, parent of 3 MUHSD graduates, and my wife and I both are proud 1983 graduates of the mighty Falcons of Atwater High School, where the former board president, Mr. Dave Honey, was my athletic director. I want to thank our current DTA president for encouraging the members to write in to voice our opinions to be heard loud. The key words are our opinions as to how each of us feels. It shouldn't matter whether we agree or not, as we all have the right to our individual opinions. If the final decisions do not go our way, we should continue to do our job. That is my first opinion.
We're about 20 minutes.
Okay. So we have reached the 20-minute limit on the public comments for tonight. I just want to reiterate to the public that first of all, we thank you on behalf of the board for all of your comments. As you are well aware, we have had an in-depth discussion on the return to learn plan amongst all trustees here tonight. We have voiced our concerns, our issues that have come to us, and we brought them forward to the cabinet team to try to resolve those and address those as soon as possible. So lots of discussion on that particular topic. And just to reiterate once again, Mr. Peterson's comment on when we talked about the return to learn, this board has never had a plan to reopen fully. We want to squash that rumor once again. That plan we've not even had that discussion yet. So rest assured that we are currently tackling only the distance learning and the hybrid process that we're going through now, and we're trying to improve on that process moving forward. So on behalf of the board, we appreciate all comments. Parents out there, we hear you loud and clear. Staff members, we hear you loud and clear. And students, we hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much. Julio, do you have a comment?
I just wanted to ask you, we can just read the last one. It's one last one, couple minutes.
It's actually both, Julio, she still has to finish like half of the other comments plus the last one. So I think a lot of the comments that are on tonight, Julio, we've had an in-depth discussion on. So I think we can move forward and proceed, okay?
I think you're right. Most of them are saying the same thing, so you're right on that.
Yes.
Richard, can I say one thing?
Yes, President.
Thank you. I just want to encourage to make sure that our union leadership team is also listening, and that They realize the urgency, and hopefully there can be some accelerated timing and, some negotiating for what is truly best for our students and our staff, for the majority, if not all, not just a select few.
And just to piggyback on that topic, as we talked about negotiating, Mr. Peterson, I think now is the prime time that we put a lot of our things aside and we really focus on what's in front of us right now. And that's a lot of the concerns over the distance learning, over how to best support students, social and emotional learning, how to re-engage students. I think those are the hottest topics that we have in front of us that we should be having those in-depth discussions on, and not waiting later on down the road. I think we need to have that engagement with our union leadership, like Mrs. Hammond mentioned, as soon as tomorrow morning. Because if we're really looking to tackle this whole changing of our schedule, that needs to happen soon. And then we have time to sit there and toy what those numbers may look like and what those processes and all those logistical things might look like down the road. So I encourage all parties to start this conversation as soon as possible. Thank you, guys. Okay. All right, we'll move on now to the employees association comment period. And I had all the emails here. I'm sorry, Leslie. I'm sorry. Here we go. Thank you. All right, so we'll start up with our CSCA Chapter 252. Good evening, board members. This year, 2020, is almost gone, and our e-board will be transitioning out to allow others to step up and serve. The district and CSCA have made some progress, but there's still work to be done. We've had our disagreements on interpretation of contract language, but in the end, things seem to work itself out. The classified have been on the front line supporting students' needs, and we need to make sure when hiring that the most qualified are chosen, not the most popular or the one you would rather work with. We also would like to address the recent positive cases among staff. The numbers are rising and now moving into the purple, as many classified concerns. For the safety of our students and staff, we need to strongly encourage social distancing and wearing a mask. We believe that Mr. Peterson has grown as a leader during this pandemic, and the classified are proud to follow his lead. Respectfully submitted, the CSCA e-board. And then I've got a comment from Mr. Puss. Good evening, President Lopez, board members, Superintendent Peterson, and cabinet. Over the past few weeks, community members and staff have brought a multitude of concerns to you relating to safety, screen time, and student well-being. Rather than address these issues head-on, some board members and district leadership have passed the concerns to others with the hope that some will be silenced and others will be ignored. Please know that as elected officials and as the superintendent who was hired to handle these issues, the buck stops with you. The answers and solutions must come from you. As our county charges into the purple tier of COVID infections and our high schools are quickly becoming COVID hotspots, we have seen many students opting for distance learning. This has led to fewer students on campuses, putting fewer students in classrooms, resulting in a safer environment for staff and students. It has been stated that once enough students elect distance learning, the district would like to eliminate this safer environment by getting rid of the AB schedule and having all in-person students attend 5 days per week. While this might be achievable, it begs the question, why? Why is the health, well-being, and safety of our community continually marginalized by this district? Why is science being ignored by this educational institution? Why do I even need to ask why? Our students can and have become infected with this virus. Our students are vectors for this virus. Our district has seen an increase in positive COVID tests since students have come back on campuses. These are all facts, not opinion or speculation. These facts exist despite the willful ignorance of some. As we continue to have groups of people in close settings, we are quickening the spread of this virus, which will cause unnecessary suffering. Now that we are surging into the purple level, businesses will have to shutter, and the economic decline will be severe, not only for businesses, but for the workers and their families. Those families are made up of the students we serve and meet their needs of food, shelter, and a sense of stability that is so sorely missing in this pandemic. You must not allow our students and staff to be provided the minimum standard of safety while our county is at level indicating maximum risk to all. You can show our students, staff, and community that you are not one of the willfully ignorant. How do you do this? By following 3 clear steps. One, ensure the maximum amount of safety for everyone on campuses by following the strictest of safety standards. Two, minimize the number of people on any site at any given time. And three, follow the science, not your individual wants. As negotiations continue, the district would like to remove much of the language providing safety for students and staff, saying that it's all in the district's protocols. The fact that more than half of our parents and guardians are opting to keep their children home rather than sending them to campuses is a clear demonstration that they lack confidence in the board and district leadership's protocols. We will not let our students and staff safety and therefore the well-being of our community, which reaches from Merced to Livingston, rely on a document that has no teeth. And so we call upon you as the elected school board to hold the district to the highest of standards. If we demand that of our students, shouldn't we demand that from our leadership? DTA. And now we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda. I second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda?
No. Nope.
None? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for the vote, please. Motion carries 4-1. Move on to the action, I'm sorry. Yeah, donations, sorry.
No problem. The board would like to thank the following for their donations: Charles Cross, Irene Brown, Betty McLean, Merced School Employees Federal Credit Union, Jonathan Maffey, Linda and Martin Luis, Team Dibley, Judith Gould, Merced Medical Center, Cindy Ramirez, Sam Verona, and Patricia Black. Thank you again for your donations.
We will now move on to the action agenda. First item is item number 14.01, the 2021 CSBA Delegate Assembly nomination. And I have a document from Mrs. Warbeck here somewhere. Okay. That's an empty document, Mrs. Warbeck.
Just lots of attention.
Okay. All right. So the CSBA member boards are eligible to nominate board members within their geographical region or sub-region for the CSBA Delegate Assembly. Each board may nominate as many individuals as it chooses. All nominees must serve on CSBA member boards and give their approval prior to being nominated. Nominations will be accepted until Tuesday, January 7th, 2021. Elected delegates will serve a 2-year term beginning April 1, 2021 through March 31, 2023, and are required to attend 2 delegate assembly meetings each year. In 2021, their first meeting will be May 15th through 16th and November 30th to December 1st. The only alternative or identified opposition is that we don't nominate any delegate to the from the MEHSD board. So,
Is there anyone who would like to be nominated?
who are you doing, John?
I move not to have a delegate.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for the vote, please.
So a yes vote indicates
That we're not gonna send somebody?
Well, I would have just not made a motion,
Oh,
but.
We can do that too.
Okay, I'll change the motion on the minutes to not nominate anyone.
not nominate or trust. Okay, good. Thank you, Leslie. Oh, we have to vote or not vote?
Yeah, hold on, I'm getting there.
Let's go.
So a yes vote nominates no one.
Okay. That works. And the motion carries 5-0. Move on to item 14.02, the 2021 board meeting date.
Hey, Richard, I just had a question on that. I was trying to talk, but I was on mute. On the consent agenda, Mr. Weimer is available, right? I had sent him some email questions, but I never got a reply. Is he still, is he out or is he in?
No, he's here right now, Julio. He's here in person.
Okay, Mr. Weimer, I sent you some questions. When you get a chance, can you please reply to my email?
Yes, I'll check right now to see if I got it.
Thank you.
I'll check in a minute.
Thank you, Julio. All right, so the 2021 board meeting dates. And these are obviously contingent on COVID and us meeting here versus other school sites, correct? So this is best case scenario of everything we're okay
This is returning
to normal.
full in, yeah,
Okay.
January.
So you have before you the proposed meeting dates for 2021. The board would meet on the second Wednesday of each month except as follows. A special board meeting in June is added because of the budget and LCAP requirements. No meeting is scheduled in July. And in December, the meeting is postponed to the third Wednesday due to legal requirements based on the annual organization requirements that happen after the second Friday in December. Superintendent recommends the board approve the 2021 Board of Trustees meeting dates as proposed.
Move to approve the 2021 board meeting date.
I second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions or comments on that?
It seems brutal to have a meeting on the first day of school for, district office and administration. I don't know if you guys don't care.
Yeah, it's happened before.
Okay.
That's 2 years.
Right?
Aaron, what about your suggestion with doing 2 board meetings? Is that something you're not thinking about anymore?
I don't know, Julio. I mean, I'm definitely open to it. I don't think the majority is, and we've been having them as we needed them during the pandemic, which I think has worked.
With the special meetings and stuff?
Yeah.
I think my only comment on this would be that meeting in July. That obviously, I guess we can always call it a special meeting if needed. That would, take care of that, because I just don't know where we're gonna be at
Absolutely.
that timeframe, so.
We did that this year. I think actually we had 2 board meetings in
In
July.
correct, okay, all right. So we're safe, not calendaring then, okay. All right, any further discussion on that? Let's call for the vote, please. Motion carries 5-0. We'll move on then to item 14.03, board approval of certificated assignment.
Good evening again. Education Code 44263 allows a certificated employee to teach out of his or her area of certification with approval of the Board of Trustees. If the individual has completed 18 semester hours of coursework or 9 semester hours of upper division or graduate work and the subject to be taught. Education Code 44258.7 allows a certificated employee to teach out of his or her area of certification with approval of the Board of Trustees if the individual has completed 20 clock hours of first aid instruction appropriate to the specific sport being coached. The 67 teachers on the attached lists meet the requirements of Ed Codes 44263 and 44258.7. They are currently assigned to teach outside of their areas of certification. These teachers represent 26.2 FTEs. The superintendent recommends the approval of the teachers listed being assigned to teach outside of their areas of certification in accordance with Education Codes 44263 and 44258.7.
Is there a motion?
I move. This is John.
Thank you, John. I second the motion.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on that topic? Okay. Seeing none or hearing none, we'll call for the vote, please. And the motion carries 5-0. 14.04, the revisions to board policy 6145.2 on athletic competition.
President Lopez, this policy is being revised because new law AB 908 became effective immediately to provide provisions to existing policy that would allow a student or students who does not achieve satisfactory educational progress in the previous grading period to remain eligible to participate in an extracurricular and co-curricular activities during a probationary period, only through the first semester of 2020-2021 school year. The superintendent brings before the Board of Trustees revision to board policy 6145.2, athletic competition, for a first reading with the possibility of adoption.
I move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
To go ahead and approve the first reading, or do you want to just go ahead and approve the whole thing? And wait
So,
the second reading.
I move to approve the whole thing. I actually move to approve it for the duration of the academic school year, as opposed to just the first semester. Well, that's different than AB 908 though. AB 908 is specific to the first semester of the 2021 year, right?
It actually allows you to do that. The reason that it's modified in this, AB 908 allows you to extend it through the 2021 school year. The reason it's modified like this is because we spoke to principals, and if we expect to play by the second semester, we also want to send a message to our athletes: get your grades in order right now and be eligible. We'll keep you in a probationary status. If things should change, I can always come back with another revision to this. But right now, our recommendation is that we apply it to the first semester. We don't want to.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. Like you said, we can always bring it back and extend it, but this wouldn't make them eligible through
So when is the first semester? January what?
14.
So they're only going to have about 5 academic weeks, right? To get their grade, I guess, a satisfactory rate to compete. If not, they're out for the remainder.
I think the board should think about the third quarter and consider that. I don't think any logical person, I think right now understands athletics is not going to start before the end of the semester. So I understand Mrs. Ham's point about going through the end of the year. Principals and ADs believe there needs to be a little bit of teeth there. So I think a logical action right now would be to take this through the third quarter and then come back and amend it if needed.
Okay. So I know we had a motion, we had a second. So do we want to go ahead and amend that motion then?
Sure.
Okay.
Is everyone comfortable with the third quarter? So we're amending this to be through the third quarter of the first semester.
Right.
And the third quarter ends when, in February or early March?
March.
Was that part of your timeline? I don't think it was in there. Okay. I move to revise board policy 6145.2 through the end of the third quarter.
And waive the second reading?
And waive the second reading.
I second that motion.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on that item? Okay, seeing or hearing none, we'll call for the vote, please.
Home run.
Mr. Swigard, we're waiting for your vote.
Yeah, it hasn't come up on my screen. Sorry. You can mark me down as a yay if it doesn't pop up. It hasn't.
Okay, I'm gonna mark you as a yay.
Thank you.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, thank you all. All right, Superintendent's report, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, President Lopez. First, I want to thank Principal Jolly and Mr. Harding for their outstanding work with the Public Services CTE pathway, and also want to thank former Principal Mrs. Ballinger for putting resources toward that. Mr. Aguilar, thank you, and Dr. Coleman for the inflection survey tonight. I think that was eye-opening for all of us, especially in these extraordinary times. We have to focus on providing whatever social emotional help we can. Thank you to all cabinet members. We are in extraordinary times, and as our teachers feel it, everyone here feels it also. Everybody's doing their very best, putting in as many hours as it takes to get things done. As we are all aware, the county has fallen back into the purple tier. We've also had a small percentage of staff and students test positive for COVID. We have done a great job in this district. We are an example for others for contact tracing and making sure that those who should quarantine do quarantine. We are also starting to see more students switch back, as we have talked about tonight, to distance learning. And as I said earlier, I would expect that to rise through the coming weeks. I want to address the rumor mill. There is no management in this district from the board level on down that has ever discussed coming back full-time anytime this year. I have no idea where that information came from. Public health has never entertained the topic. The AB schedule will be with us for most, if not all, the year. And just to be clear, for those that may forget, every Wednesday, I am on a call along with Mr. Lopez with Public Health. They tell us what we can and cannot do. Today's guidance was to continue with in-person instruction following all procedures and protocols. There was a change with athletic guidance, and there may be no contact, even incidental contact drills, none at all. Their preference is outside activities only, but they are okay with larger gyms and larger weight rooms with the doors and windows open. Athletes and coaches must stay 10 feet apart while inside. With regard to the schedule, the district has no problem shortening periods, but there are legal issues with some of our special populations that have to be worked out. I have no problem making this happen Monday or after break. We have to agree on the remedy to solve these problems. I sent a memo on Monday and I commented on the need to allow at-risk students to come back full-time. That is in process and will be happening soon if it's not already happening. I also commented we could look at the general population coming back, but I did not mean now or anytime soon. I should have been more clear with that. And just to comment on the rumor mill, please pick up the phone. Send me an email. Every DTA member knows that emails me. They get a response back the same day and usually within a couple hours. It avoids a lot of nonsense. Our district needs to maintain vigilance and basic protocols. Wash your hands, wear a mask, and watch your distance, both at work and at home. And please stay 6 feet apart from one another. Our administration is fully aware of the need to focus on social distancing. I want to thank the board tonight and always. These are difficult times, and we are working through it together, and appreciate your support and direction.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Okay, move on then to the communication information, future agenda items from the trustees. I'll start with you, Ms. Hannah.
Thank you, Leslie, for making modifications to the meeting set up tonight. So I think it was a better viewer, listener experience. I do think we got a lot of comments about being able to hear probably me. My voice doesn't carry at all. So I know we have microphones, and maybe we can try those next time.
Yeah, we're just not sure about the feedback from that speaker and that, so, but we'll give it a try and see.
Okay, very good. And otherwise, I echo some of the sentiments that Alan said of just really a sincere attitude of gratitude, which I guess is very appropriate with Thanksgiving upon us. But I just really appreciate the district as a whole, and our parents and our students. I really am thankful for the respectful tone that even those who are expressing frustration. I mean, we're all frustrated. This is a very tumultuous time. It's trying to make good out of bad, and I think everybody's ability to voice their opinion and do it in a respectful way is very, very appreciated. The board is listening, the administration is listening, and together we will find our way through this, knowing that it's not going to be perfect, but we will eventually, hopefully, land on an ideal scenario that that works for our students and our staff, and hopefully can find a way to get kids back engaged in learning again.
Thank you. Trustee Swigert?
Yeah, I really don't have a lot to add. I think that the public is and staff and administration have made their concerns clear. I think everybody's doing the best job they can in an extraordinary circumstance, and I commend everybody's hard work. I hope we can just figure out a way to make it the best we can for the kids to learn, the teachers to be able to spend more time teaching and less time taking attendance, and just give these kids what they deserve during this time. And I hope it passes soon and we can get back to normal. But again, just appreciate everybody's effort. I know it's tough, and I know people are working super hard in a new environment, and it's got to be both frustrating and trying.
Thank you, John. Trustee Pickle?
Yes, no future items, just a few comments. I do hope that we continue with athletics to every extent possible and within our jurisdiction, you know, Coach Rhodes mentioned. I do also feel that we need to have the same respect for the choice to stay on distance learning as the decision to return to in-person. And so for that reason, I do support a reduced day, but the two sides need to come together and reach an agreement that is in the best interest of our students. I want to thank all staff, all levels, everywhere, for everything you're doing every day for our kids, and be safe over the Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you.
Trustee Valadez?
He logged off.
Oh, kidding?
You're up.
No.
I accidentally did. I got so excited I shut my computer.
Oh.
I'm here.
So just a simple comment on my behalf. Ralph, where are we with the whole guidance check? Remember the CSEA had addressed that to us the previous 2 months. Did that get resolved?
Yeah, all those positions, sorry, no, I'm speaking into that, sorry. I'm lost too. Yes, Mrs. Ballinger contacted CSEA. And again, a lot of the reasons for that was we had budgetary concerns. And we thought it was, not the great way to do business is to hire somebody just to tell them months later that we weren't gonna use them anymore. So, we got those answers and we posted those positions.
Thank you, sir. Leslie, can you reach out to Julio if he actually logged off?
He just sent a screenshot that shows that he's, connecting.
Okay. I just
You
wanted
want me to tell him to call my cell phone and I can lay it
That's
there
fine,
next to the
let's do
speaker?
that. Thank you. Let's see, on the tracking of the instructional minutes, I know that this is kind of like our key or our legend here as far as what this means. Is there like a number code that we're using, like a 1 through 5? And if so, like what do those numbers represent? Like you say, a 3 is completed synchronous only, which did not take 40 minutes, or 5 is in person. Like, is there a 2, a 3, a 2, a 4, or 1?
There's one other code that's used infrequently that is a 4.
Okay.
If there is a person who is not going to be giving synchronous work that day, maybe they have a sub or something like that, they can give a 48-minute asynchronous assignment, which means the kid does it all on his own and there's no in-person learning for that day. That would be a 4. If we go to a reduced day, we probably will have to add a 6.
Okay. And then, as far as Scott's presentation, was it Scott?
Matt.
Thank you, Coleman, thank you. On the whole, SEL stuff and the student survey, have we reached out to teachers that, I'm sure there are teachers that make wonderful connections with kids, especially with, our LGBTQ, GTQ plus students who are, they've shown the lowest across, I think, all levels. And I'm sure that there are teachers out there that can reach out to them or have been reaching out to them. Can we start, is there a way that we can embrace whatever they're doing to make it work across the district? Because I know the survey sound is one thing, but then what's our action gonna be? And if we already have some people that are experts in that area, can we start to utilize their expertise?
Sure. One of the simple, the small plays that Matt talks about is putting the GSA flag up in the window, so students know it's a safe place or if they need someone to talk to. Talking to some of the staff members already in our district, they have a GSA club, and there's an advisor on the campus. So those are huge takeaways. And some of our campuses have them and some of them don't.
Will that presentation be shared with staff soon, or?
It can be.
Yeah.
That's my time, Mrs. Ham.
Sorry. You were making such good comments that it created a question.
As far as the CARES funding goes, I know we're at December 31st is a deadline. And I know that we, made big purchases with the cameras. That was a $700,000 purchase. What else how else are we gonna utilize those funds? Or say that we're gonna allocate them by December 31 and obligate them to something?
We've been purchasing other equipment as we've been going along as well. We do have things like GoPros coming in, which would be for recording of lessons so that you actually could then post things on as we moved into CTE returning, we found out a lot of the areas weren't necessarily traditional classrooms. So you might be able to record certain things in those shops or different things that you could then post for your students. We also found that several of those did not have Wi-Fi access. They did in the classroom part, but not out in the actual buildings themselves where they actually do the hands-on activities. And so we have people walking next week to identify those locations and get WAPs put into there so that wireless is available within those areas. So that would help them actually do broadcasting and different things from out in the actual shops and different places on campus that don't currently have it. We talked about the filtration system. We have 6 more filtration systems coming for every campus coming in. Lots of PPE.
So when you talk about the filtration system, is that like going to be placed or something in every unit on every classroom?
No. These are water systems.
Water, so we're not talking that those air filters.
No, it's a water bottle. It's a water bottle.
Okay.
Filler, and so you would basically be able to it's a sensor, and you put the water bottle up, and it fills your water bottle for you, and it uses filtration water, and it's a no-touch situation. We have several places identified on each campus that they can go. That will get us 2 to 3 more. The other 3 are going to be a little bit harder because they need electricity and water, and a large number of places where we have water fountains, we don't necessarily have electricity. So those might be a little bit harder to
And I'm sure that will expend all $10 million, but I mean, like, what are big ticket items, like you're saying, the GoPros? Like, I'm a little hesitant only because we just threw these broadcasting cameras at them, and now it's another tool that we're gonna ask them to utilize during this time frame, and then, I mean.
We asked them, they told us what they wanted.
GoPros?
Yeah,
that's
the teachers,
Oh, so they'd rather go with GoPros? Oh,
teachers gave us requests, or they gave the principals requests, and so we're going through and identifying the different things that we can do. We've had requests for document cameras so that you can actually, you know, you have the camera here that's on you, but you then have a camera that can show different things that you need to show right here on your desktop. A variety of those types of things.
and just these topics alone, you know, shows me, and I don't know about you guys, that we need to have I guess, a clearer communication with all parties, because we purchased $700,000 of broadcasting cameras, but then they want Elmos and they want these GoPros, and now these cameras, once these GoPros come in, are gonna sit there. You know, so then can we start to see if there are other needs that they may want, you know, before December 31st, so we can truly say, you know what, this is what you requested, and we got you this. And
Yeah,
then
we have that list. Every site has given us the list.
Okay.
We're going through those and identifying which, there are a lot of wish lists that I can't cover under the CARES Act.
Right.
So we're going through and identifying those and breaking those down into those different areas.
Okay, but 2 more things. As far as the LCP, plan, are we gonna get those updates in the December meeting? Yeah. With the recommendations? Okay, sounds good. And then, Julio, I'm not sure if he's on yet.
No, I called and he didn't
Okay.
answer, and I texted him and asked him to call my cell phone,
Okay.
and trustee Swigard, but left the meeting,
Okay.
he left the meeting also.
And I do want to publicly, obviously, congratulate, Julio Valadez, for winning his district and being a part of MUHSC for 4 more years. So congratulations, Julio. I'm not sure if you can hear us out there. And, finally, congratulations to, BCH alumni Dylan Floro and, you know, Dr. Aguilar, Doc.
Why are you congratulating that? Thank you, President Lopez. I was part of that. I was part of that.
Yeah, you were part of that. So thank you, everybody out in the public. We do appreciate you hanging in with us till 9:45. Long meeting, but lots of great dialogue and discussion amongst our board tonight. And thank you for all the comments once again. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Please stay safe and follow the safety precautions as much as possible. Thank you. Good night.
Hey, and if the Rams win, we're gonna have to have a Los Angeles Dodgers.
Well, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that at all.